Rescued in the Storm. The Callahans of Elk Ridge. Written by Suzanne Ash. Please like and subscribe. Chapter 1. Sarah. The clock on the wall hasn't even hit 5 a.m., but the ovens at Miller's Bakery have been warming the space for nearly an hour. I lose myself in the rhythm of kneading, my hands coated in flour as I work the dough against the wooden counter. There's something soothing about the repetitive motion, the way the dough transforms from sticky to smooth beneath my fingertips. Outside, Elk Ridge is beginning to wake up. Streetlights still glow against the pre-dawn darkness while my little corner of Main Street smells like cinnamon, vanilla, and the rich aroma of fresh coffee. I breathe it in, centering myself for the day ahead. Almost ready for the morning rush? Maya asks, tying her apron as she emerges from the back room. She's been my assistant for nearly 2 years, and I don't know what I'd do without her. Finishing the last batch of cinnamon rolls, I say, glancing at the clock. My heart does that familiar little stutter it always does on Tuesday mornings. Because I know what's coming next. Right on cue, the bell above the door chimes. And there he is. Connor Callahan walks into my bakery like he does every week. He's tall, impossibly broad-shouldered, with that perpetually windswept dark hair that looks like he just hiked down from some mountain peak. Which, knowing Connor, he probably did. Morning, he says, his voice rough like he hasn't used it much yet today. Those striking blue eyes sweep over the display case before landing briefly on mine. Morning, I reply, wiping my hands on my apron. The usual? He nods, and I try not to let my eyes linger on the way his flannel shirt stretches across his shoulders as he leans against the counter. I've gotten good at this part. The casual exchange. The careful distance. The pretending I haven't been in love with him since we were 17. 1 black coffee and a blueberry scone, I say, more to myself than to him as I grab a to-go cup. I still don't understand why he comes here. His family's lodge serves excellent coffee and breakfast. His brother Declan is a phenomenal chef who could probably make scones that would put mine to shame. I even supply the lodge with baked goods on occasion. There's no logical reason for Connor Callahan to go out of his way to stop by my bakery once a week, every week. Yet here he is. I slide the coffee and pastry bag across the counter. That'll be $5.75. He hands me a 10. Keep the change. Our fingers brush, and I focus on the register instead of the warmth of his skin. This is the moment where he usually grabs his order and leaves with a brief nod, disappearing back into his world of mountain trails and guided adventures that doesn't include me. But today, something's different. Connor's fingers linger on the counter, tapping twice before he reaches for the bag. He opens his mouth like he might say something else, then seems to think better of it. Thanks, Sarah. My name sounds different when he says it. Softer somehow. I watch him leave, the bell chiming his departure as my heart squeezes in my chest. Through the window, I can see him pause outside, take a sip of his coffee, then pull out half of the scone. He takes a bite, wrapping the rest carefully back in the bag before continuing down the sidewalk. Maya bumps my shoulder gently. Earth to Sarah. The timer's been going off. I blink, coming back to myself in time to rescue the cinnamon rolls before they turn from golden to burnt. Another Tuesday morning at Miller's Bakery. Another glimpse of Connor. Another day of pretending that's enough. The morning rush has finally died down, leaving me with a moment to breathe and Maya with a chance to restock the display case. I'm wiping down the counters when the bell chimes again, and I look up to see Catherine Callahan strolling in. Please tell me you have at least 1 cinnamon roll left, she says, leaning against the counter. The coffee loft ran out of your deliveries an hour ago, and I've got a customer threatening mutiny. I laugh, reaching for the last one I'd set aside. Lucky for you, I saved one for my afternoon coffee break. But I suppose I can be persuaded to part with it. Catherine and I have an unusual friendship. She owns the coffee loft across town, and we've worked out a comfortable arrangement. I supply her shop with pastries daily, And she keeps me caffeinated with her experimental latte creations that somehow always turn out perfect. It also doesn't hurt that she became a Callahan last spring when she tied the knot with Connor's cousin Nolan in a ceremony so picture-perfect it belonged on the cover of Mountain Living magazine. So, Catherine says, putting the cinnamon roll away. I saw a certain wilderness guide leaving your shop earlier. I busy myself with reorganizing already neat stacks of napkins. Connor stops by every Tuesday. You know that. She raises an eyebrow, seeing right through me. And you just happen to make fresh blueberry scones every Tuesday morning? I make fresh scones every morning, I counter, but I can feel my cheeks warming. But blueberry ones, his favorite, always on Tuesdays. She pops another bite into her mouth, watching me with those knowing eyes. I'm just saying, for someone who claims to be over him, you sure pay attention to his preferences. It's called good customer service. It's called you've been in love with him since high school. I sigh, dropping the pretense. And he's never noticed. Not once in all these years. I turn away, stacking clean mugs with more force than necessary. Besides, I've accepted that we'll never be more than whatever we are. Acquaintances who exchange pleasantries once a week over coffee and pastries. Sarah. It's fine. I wave her off. Really? I've moved on. The lie sits heavy on my tongue. I haven't moved on. I've gotten better at pretending. Catherine looks like she wants to argue, but the bell chimes again, saving me from further interrogation. 2 hikers come in, their backpacks and sturdy boots marking them as lodge guests rather than locals. Do you have any of those amazing apple tarts left? The woman asks, scanning the display case. We had them at Mountain Laurel Lodge yesterday, and the chef said they came from here. Just baked a fresh batch, I reply with a smile, grateful for the distraction. I box up half a dozen while her companion studies a trail map spread across one of my small cafe tables. We're thinking of doing Eagle Point tomorrow, he says to his partner. The view from the summit is supposed to be incredible. You can see 3 mountain ranges from up there. If you're looking for Eagle Point, you should take the Eastern Trail, Catherine chimes in. My husband says it's less steep, and there's a beautiful meadow of wildflowers about halfway up. Is it difficult? The woman asks, looking uncertain. Not at all, Catherine assures her. It's one of the easier trails around here. Perfect for beginners, and the views are worth every step. I hand over their boxed tarts, listening to their excited chatter about tomorrow's hike. Something stirs in my chest, a restlessness I can't quite name. I've lived in Elk Ridge my entire life, surrounded by some of the most beautiful mountains in the state, and yet I rarely venture beyond the familiar streets of town. Maybe I'll check it out, I say, surprising myself. 3 heads turn toward me. You? Hiking? Catherine's eyes widen slightly. Why not? I straighten my shoulders. It's not like I'm chained to this bakery. No, of course not, it's just. She hesitates. I don't think I've ever heard you express interest in hiking before. Well, maybe it's time for a change. The idea takes firmer root with each passing second. Eagle Point. A trail even beginners can handle. A view of 3 mountain ranges. Something Connor would do without a second thought. The hikers wish me luck before leaving, promising to come back for more tarts before they check out of the lodge. As soon as the door closes behind them, Catherine fixes me with a suspicious look. This doesn't have anything to do with a certain wilderness guide, does it? Not everything in my life revolves around Connor Callahan, I say, the words coming out sharper than intended. She holds up her hands in surrender. Okay. Just be careful out there. The weather can change quickly this time of year. I know how mountains work, Catherine. I've lived here my entire life. Knowing and experiencing are 2 different things. She gathers her things, heading for the door. Text me if you decide to go. Let someone know where you'll be. After she leaves, I find myself staring out the window at the mountains that frame our little town. They're always there, steady and unchanging, while life happens in their shadow. How many times have I watched Connor disappear into those trees, leading groups of strangers on adventures I've only heard about? Too many times to count. By closing time, my mind is made up. Tomorrow morning, I'll leave Maya in charge of the bakery, and I'll hike to Eagle Point. I'll see those 3 mountain ranges for myself. I'll do something unexpected, something outside my carefully constructed routine of baking and waiting and watching other people live their lives. At home that night, I pull out the hiking boots I bought 3 years ago on a similar burst of inspiration. One that faded before I ever put them to use. They still have the price tag attached. I grab my phone and search for information on the Eagle Point Trail, making notes about what to bring. Water. Snacks. A small first aid kit. My camera. It's not like I'm attempting Everest. It's a beginner trail, one that tourists tackle every day. How hard could it possibly be? As I set my alarm for earlier than usual, a small voice in the back of my mind whispers that I'm being impulsive, that I should wait and plan better. But a louder voice, the one tired of playing it safe, drowns it out. Tomorrow, Sarah Miller is going hiking.
Chapter 2. Connor. And if you look to your left, you'll see a pair of golden eagles circling near the ridge. I point toward the distant outcropping where 2 large birds of prey ride the thermal currents. They'd nested in that same spot for about 3 years now. Golden eagles mate for life and return to the same nesting site year after year. A chorus of appreciative murmurs rises from the group of hikers I'm leading along Wildflower Ridge. 6 tourists, all decked out in brand new hiking gear that hasn't seen enough dirt yet to look authentic. They're nice enough, though, and genuinely interested in the landscape and wildlife. Not just here for Instagram photos like some groups. How much farther to the waterfall? Asks a woman in a purple jacket. Linda, if I remember correctly. She and her husband are celebrating their anniversary. About another mile, I tell her, checking my watch. We should be there in. Something stops me mid-sentence. A feeling. Nothing I can point to or name, just a sudden unease prickling at the back of my neck. I turn slowly, scanning the trail behind us, then looking up at the sky. The morning had started clear and bright, but now I notice darker clouds gathering over the eastern peaks. They weren't in the forecast when I checked at dawn. Everything okay? Asks Richard, the most experienced hiker of the group. Yeah, I say, but I'm already calculating distances and times in my head. Just keeping an eye on those clouds. As if on cue, a low rumble reaches us, distant but unmistakable. Is that thunder? Linda's husband asks, looking concerned. I nod, decisions already made. Change of plans, folks. We're going to head back to the lodge. But the waterfall, begins the youngest member of the group, a college student named Tyler. We'll still be there tomorrow, I finish for him. Mountain weather can change fast, and I don't like the look of those clouds. Trust me, you don't want to be caught on an exposed ridge during a thunderstorm. Years of guiding have taught me that maintaining a calm demeanor is half the battle. I keep my voice steady, my expression relaxed, even as I pick up the pace slightly on our return journey. Another rumble of thunder, louder this time. The clouds are moving faster than I expected, rolling in from the east. My gut instinct is rarely wrong about these things. Will we make it back before the rain? Linda asks, slightly breathless as she navigates a rocky section of trail. That's the plan, I say with a reassuring smile that doesn't quite match the concern building in my chest. We're making good time, about a mile from the trailhead where our lodge shuttle waits, when the wind picks up, sharp and cool against my face. The first hint of rain scents the air. I glance at the clouds again. They're darker now, heavy with the promise of a serious downpour. Let's pick up the pace a bit, I suggest, offering a hand to Linda as we descend a steep section of switchbacks. By the time we reach the final stretch of trail, I can see our shuttle in the small parking area ahead. Perfect timing. The first fat raindrops are beginning to fall, spattering the dusty trail and raising the distinctive scent of rain on dry earth. Looks like we're going to get wet after all, Richard comments good-naturedly. Better a little rain than a lightning storm on the ridge, I reply, ushering everyone down the last slope. We're nearly to the parking lot when something catches my eye. A vehicle that doesn't belong to the lodge or any of the regular guides. A small blue hatchback parked at the far end, near the trailhead for Eagle Point. I stop so abruptly that Tyler nearly bumps into me. I know that car. The faded bumper sticker on the back window. The small crack in the taillight that I've been telling her to fix for months. Sarah's car. My chest tightens. Sarah Miller is not a hiker. In the decade I've known her, I've never once seen her on a trail. What in the world is she doing up here, today of all days, with a storm rolling in? Connor? Richard prompts, drawing my attention back to the group. Sorry, I mutter, forcing myself to focus on my current responsibility. Everyone into the shuttle. We need to get back before this really starts coming down. I drive the group back to the lodge in record time, my mind racing faster than the approaching storm clouds. The rain is coming down harder now, drumming against the roof of the shuttle as I pull up to the lodge entrance. Thanks for getting us back safely, Linda says as the group files out. My brother Rowan will help you get settled, I tell them, spotting my youngest brother on the porch. I need to head back out. I catch Rowan's eye as the group moves toward the shelter of the lodge. Storm's coming in fast, I call to him. Can you make sure Liam knows this group is back safe? He nods, immediately picking up on my urgency. Everything okay? I spotted Sarah Miller's car at the Eagle Point trailhead. Understanding dawns on his face. Go! I've got this. He glances over his shoulder toward the main office. Heads up though, Liam's in a mood. Mom's new bookkeeper showed up this morning. Turns out it's Lauren Abbott. Lauren Abbott. Liam's ex-wife. No wonder my brother's in a mood. Leave it to our mother to hire the one person guaranteed to turn Liam's world upside down without warning any of us. But that's a Callahan family drama for another day. He'll survive, I say, already backing up the shuttle. I've got more urgent problems right now. I don't wait for further discussion. As soon as the last hiker is safely inside, I throw the shuttle into reverse, then spin it around, heading back toward the trailhead at a speed that would make Liam lecture me about lodge liability.
Chapter 3. Sarah. This was a terrible idea. I adjust my backpack for the 10th time in as many minutes, trying to ignore the dampness seeping through my jacket. What started as a light drizzle has steadily intensified, and now fat raindrops hammer against the hood of my jacket, drumming a mocking rhythm that seems to say, amateur, amateur, amateur. The trail that looked so manageable on my phone screen last night is now a treacherous ribbon of mud snaking up the mountainside. Each step requires more concentration than the last as my boots, stiff with newness, slide and stick in the increasingly slippery terrain. Just a little farther, I mutter to myself, though I have no idea how far the viewpoint actually is. The clouds have descended, shrouding the higher elevations in a thick gray mist that makes it impossible to see more than 20 feet ahead. I pause, catching my breath against a large pine tree. The rational part of my brain is screaming at me to turn around. There won't be any spectacular view of 3 mountain ranges in this weather. The entire point of this hike has literally been swallowed by clouds. But turning back now feels like admitting defeat. Like confirming I don't belong out here, that I'm exactly what everyone would expect. Sarah Miller, the baker who should stick to her ovens and measuring cups. Not Sarah Miller, the woman brave enough to step outside her comfort zone. The rain might let up, I tell myself, even as it continues to fall more heavily. Maybe the clouds will clear once I reach the summit. It's a lie, and I know it. But I didn't drag myself out of bed at dawn, drive all the way up here, and struggle this far up the trail just to give up. For once in my life, I'm going to follow through on something spontaneous. I'm going to reach that viewpoint, even if all I see is fog. I push on, my boots squelching in the increasingly soggy trail. Another 100 yards reveals a steep section where rainwater now courses down like a small stream. I pick my way carefully across exposed roots and slippery rocks, using low-hanging branches to steady myself. By the time I make it up this section, my hands are muddy, my breathing heavy, and my earlier determination is wavering. The rain intensifies, becoming a heavy curtain of water. The wind picks up, shaking the trees and sending cascades of droplets from the branches overhead. My supposedly waterproof jacket has given up the fight, moisture seeping through to my skin as water runs in rivulets down my neck. In the distance, I hear the first low rumble of thunder. I should have known better. I should have checked the weather forecast more carefully. I should have listened to that little voice of caution instead of charging ahead with this impulsive plan to prove, what, exactly? That I could be adventurous? That I could step outside my comfortable bakery and embrace the wilderness the way Connor does every day? Thunder rumbles in the distance, and I freeze mid-step, counting the seconds before I see a flash of lightning through the trees. 1,000, 2 1,000, 3, there it is. The storm is still a few miles away, but moving closer. I need to turn back. Now. The realization brings both relief and disappointment. No breathtaking view of 3 mountain ranges today. No proof that Sarah Miller can be spontaneous and brave. Just a soggy, humbling trudge back to my car. I carefully pivot on the narrow trail, wincing as cold rainwater slides down the back of my neck. The path looks even more intimidating going down. Steeper somehow, and the muddy sections feel more treacherous. I take a deep breath and start my descent, one tentative step at a time. Slow and steady, I whisper, trying to channel some of the confidence Connor always exudes when he talks about his outdoor adventures. Focus on the next step. For a few minutes, it works. I make progress down the trail. The deluge continues unabated, but I'm walking, inching closer to the safety of my car with each cautious step. Then it happens. My right foot lands on what looks like solid ground but turns out to be a slick patch of mud concealing a root. My ankle twists. My arms windmill frantically as I try to regain my balance. For one heart-stopping moment, I think I've caught myself. Then my left foot slides completely out from under me. I don't even have time to scream. The world tilts, then spins as I tumble off the edge of the trail. I'm falling, sliding, my hands clawing desperately for anything to stop my descent. Pain flares as branches scrape my face and hands. My backpack catches on something, jerking me roughly before tearing free. Then, impact. Hard and sudden. I land with a breathless oof on a small ledge several feet below the trail. Pain shoots up my left leg as my ankle bends at an angle nature never intended. For a moment, I just lie there, rain pelting my face, too stunned to move. When the initial shock subsides, I try to take inventory. Nothing feels broken, at least not seriously. My palms are scraped raw from trying to catch myself. My jeans are torn at the knee, with blood seeping through the fabric. But it's my ankle that concerns me most. There's a hot, pulsing pain that intensifies when I attempt to shift position. Okay, I gasp, rolling carefully onto my side. Just, get back to the trail. I look up at where I fell from. It's only about 6 feet, but the slope is steep and muddy, with nothing substantial to grip. Under normal circumstances, maybe I could scramble back up. With an injured ankle? Not a chance. I fumble for my phone in my jacket pocket, my cold fingers clumsy with fear and pain. 1 bar of service. Just 1. I try to call Maya, but the call fails to connect. I try Catherine next. Nothing. 911? The call begins to ring, then drops. You have got to be kidding me, I mutter, staring at the useless device in my hand. Thunder cracks directly overhead now, making me flinch. The rain is coming down in sheets, plastering my hair to my face despite my hood. I'm cold, I'm hurt, and I'm completely alone on a mountain in a storm. I try to stand, putting weight gingerly on my injured ankle. White-hot pain shoots up my leg, and I collapse back onto the muddy ledge with a cry that's swallowed by the storm. I'm trapped. Panic rises in my chest, threatening to overwhelm me. I force myself to take deep breaths. Someone will notice I'm missing eventually. Maya will wonder why I haven't checked in. Or maybe a fellow hiker will come along. But even as I think it, I know how unlikely that is. Who else would be stupid enough to be out in this weather? Help! I call, my voice pathetically small against the roar of the storm. Can anyone hear me? The only response is another crack of thunder, so close now that I feel it vibrate through the ground beneath me. I pull my knees to my chest, trying to make myself as small as possible, to conserve what little body heat I have left. My camera bag, miraculously still slung across my body, digs into my side. I could document my own idiocy, I suppose. The last photos of Sarah Miller, baker, amateur photographer, mountain disaster. The thought of never seeing my bakery again, never needing another batch of dough, never glimpsing Connor walking through my door on a Tuesday morning, it brings tears to my eyes that blend seamlessly with the raindrops on my face. Help! I try again, louder this time. Please! Someone! My voice echoes briefly before being swallowed by another crash of thunder that shakes the mountainside. I flinch, curling tighter into myself as the storm intensifies around me. No one knows exactly where I am. The rain is coming down harder and harder, turning the ledge beneath me into a miniature river of mud and debris. My injured ankle throbs in time with my racing heart. I glance up at the steep incline I tumbled down, my only route back to the trail, now slick with running water. I'm completely, utterly trapped. And the storm is only getting worse. A violent gust of wind sends a spray of icy water into my face, and I turn away, pressing my forehead against my knees. I've spent my whole life playing it safe, and the one time I try to be adventurous. Lightning cracks overhead, illuminating the forest around me in a brief, harsh flash. In that split second, I see just how precarious my position really is. The ledge I'm huddled on isn't much wider than my body, with a much steeper drop continuing below. Darkness returns, and with it, a terrifying thought: what if no one finds me before nightfall? Time blurs as I huddle on my narrow ledge. Minutes stretch like hours, each rumble of thunder making me flinch. The temperature drops with the storm, and I can't stop shivering. I've tried shouting for help a few more times, but my voice is swallowed by the wind and rain. Rational thought begins to slip away, replaced by rising panic. No one knows where I am. My phone is useless. Night will fall eventually, and the thought of being trapped here in the dark. A sound cuts through the storm. Not thunder, not wind. A voice. I freeze, straining to hear. Maybe I imagined it, my desperate mind playing tricks. Then it comes again, clearer this time. Sarah. My heart lurches. I know that voice. Hello? I call back, my own voice thin and wavering. I'm here. Down here. For several agonizing seconds, there's nothing. Just rain and thunder. Then movement above me on the trail. A dark shape moving through the mist. Sarah. Connor's face appears at the edge of the trail, his expression a mixture of relief and alarm. Are you hurt? The sight of him, rain-soaked, mud-splattered, but wonderfully, impossibly real, makes my throat tight with emotion. My ankle, I manage. I fell. I can't climb back up. He assesses the situation quickly, his eyes scanning the slope between us, then the ledge where I'm huddled. Hang on. I'm coming down. No. I protest. It's too steep, too slippery. But he's already moving, finding footholds in the muddy slope, descending with controlled slides that somehow look deliberate rather than desperate. He makes it look easy, like this is just another day in the mountains for Connor Callahan. Within moments, he's crouching beside me on the narrow ledge, his larger frame blocking some of the rain. His hand, warm despite the chill, touches my shoulder. Let me see your ankle. I wince as he gently examines it, his fingers careful but certain. Sprained, not broken, I think, he says. But we need to get you down from here. His eyes meet mine, intense blue even in the storm's dim light. I saw your car at the trailhead. What were you thinking, Sarah? This trail is treacherous even in good weather for someone who doesn't hike regularly. There's frustration in his voice, but something else too, an urgency that seems more than the situation calls for. It was supposed to be easy and I wanted to see the view, I say, the explanation sounding pathetically inadequate even to my own ears. Connor's jaw tightens, but he doesn't press further. Instead, he shrugs off his backpack, pulls out a small first aid kit, and quickly wraps my ankle with practiced efficiency. "I'm going to carry you back to the trail," he says, zipping the kit away. "Then we'll get you down to safety." "You can't carry me up that," I protest, looking at the steep slope. The corner of his mouth quirks up. It's not quite a smile, but something close. "Watch me." Before I can argue further, he's positioning himself beside me. Arms around my neck. I hesitate, suddenly aware of how close we are, of the rain dripping from his dark hair, of how his eyes never leave my face. "Sarah." My name is both a command and a plea. I loop my arms around his neck, and in one fluid motion, he lifts me. The movement sends a jolt of pain through my ankle, and I bury my face against his shoulder to muffle a gasp. "Sorry," he murmurs, his breath warm against my rain-chilled skin. I'm acutely aware of his strength as he shifts me in his arms, finding the best hold before turning to face the slope. My fingers grip the wet fabric of his jacket, and I can feel the solid muscle beneath, the steady beat of his heart against my side. "Ready?" he asks. No, I think. I'm not ready for this. Not ready for being this close to him, for the strange intimacy of being carried in his arms, for the confusion swirling inside me alongside relief and pain. "Yes," I say instead. The ascent is a blur of sensation, Connor's careful but determined movement up the slope, one secure foothold at a time, the strain evident in his breathing but never in his hold on me, the momentary shelter of his body against the worst of the storm. He mutters under his breath as we climb, something about reckless hikers and stubborn bakers, but his arms never falter. When we reach the trail, he carefully sets me down, keeping one arm firmly around my waist for support. "That was the hard part," he says, though I can hear the effort in his voice that belies the claim. "Think you can walk if I help you?" I test my injured ankle, putting just a hint of weight on it. Pain shoots up my leg, but it's bearable. "Barely." "I think so," I say, gritting my teeth. "Just, slowly." Connor shifts to my side, wrapping one strong arm around my waist while guiding my arm across his shoulders. His height makes the position a bit awkward, but he adjusts, bending slightly to accommodate me. "Lean on me," he instructs. "And tell me if you need to stop." We begin our slow journey down the trail, each step a careful negotiation. The rain continues to pelt us, turning the path into a muddy obstacle course. Connor is solid beside me, taking most of my weight, his body heat a stark contrast to my rain-chilled skin. "Connor," I begin, not even sure what I want to say. "Thank you?" "I'm sorry?" "Why did you come looking for me?" He glances down, raindrops clinging to his eyelashes, and something in his expression makes my words die in my throat. There's relief, yes, and the remnants of frustration. But there's something else. An intensity, a focused concern that seems deeper than the situation warrants. For a moment, Connor Callahan is looking at me like I matter. Like I'm not just his Tuesday morning coffee stop or his friend from school or the town baker. Like I'm someone he couldn't bear to lose. It's gone almost as quickly as it appeared, his expression shifting back to determined focus. "Save your energy," he says. "We've got a ways to go yet."
Chapter 4. Connor. The rain hammers down relentlessly, turning the narrow trail into a muddy river. Sarah's weight against my side grows heavier with each step, her face paler than I've ever seen it. The brave front she's putting on isn't fooling either of us. Every time she puts even a hint of weight on that ankle, I feel her body tense against mine. "You doing okay?" I ask, my voice nearly lost in the steady drumming of rain on leaves. "Never better," she says through gritted teeth. "Isn't this how everyone spends their Thursday mornings?" Even injured and stranded in a thunderstorm, she's got spark. I can't help smiling, though worry gnaws at my gut. We're making progress, but too slowly. The temperature is dropping, and Sarah's shivering has gotten worse over the past 10 minutes. Her jeans and light jacket are soaked through, and the rain shows no signs of letting up. She stumbles slightly on a slick patch of mud, a small cry escaping her lips as her injured ankle takes weight. I tighten my grip around her waist, nearly lifting her off the ground. Sorry, she whispers, her fingers digging into my shoulder. Don't apologize. I scan the trail ahead, trying to get my bearings through the sheets of rain. We're at least 2 miles from the trailhead where I left my truck, and at this rate, it would take hours to get there. Hours Sarah doesn't have in her condition. We need shelter. Somewhere to get dry, to properly examine her ankle, to wait out the worst of the storm. And then it hits me. The Johnson cabin, I murmur, memories surfacing of exploring these woods with my brothers years ago. What? Sarah looks up at me, rain streaming down her face. There's an old hunting cabin not far from here. The Johnson family used it for generations before they sold the land to the Forest Service. Liam, Declan, Rowan, and I used to explore it when we were kids. I adjust my grip on her waist, taking more of her weight. It's rough, but it's shelter. How far? Quarter mile, maybe less. Just off the main trail. I look down at her, studying her face. Can you make it that far? She nods, a determined set to her jaw that I've seen countless times over the years. When she entered her first baking competition at 16. When she took over the bakery after her mom got sick. When she insisted on catering Catherine and Nolan's wedding despite having the flu. Sarah Miller doesn't give up easily. Lead the way, mountain man. I got us off the main trail onto a narrower path, nearly invisible now with overgrowth and rain. The going is slower here, the terrain more challenging. I'm practically carrying her at points, her arm tight around my shoulders, my arm firm around her waist. Almost there, I encourage her as we navigate a particularly rough section. Hold on. She's trembling against me, whether from cold or pain or both, I can't tell. Her normally rosy cheeks are pale, lips taking on a bluish tinge that sets off alarm bells in my head. I need to get her warm, and soon. Then, through the curtain of rain, I spot the weathered outline of the cabin, half hidden by pines and nearly reclaimed by the forest. Relief surges through me. There it is, I tell her, nodding toward the structure. Sarah squints through the rain. That's a cabin? I can't blame her skepticism. The place looks even more rundown than I remember. The small porch sags, boards are grayed with age and the single window cloudy with years of neglect. But the roof seems intact, and right now, that's all that matters. Don't judge a book by its cover, I say, maneuvering us toward it. Or a cabin by its extreme rustic charm. That earns me a small laugh, which I count as a victory. We make our way up to the porch, the old boards creaking ominously under our weight. The door is secured with a simple latch, slightly warped from years of mountain weather. I shift Sarah gently to lean against the wall while I work the stiff mechanism. When's the last time you were here? She asks, arms wrapped around herself against the chill. 10 years, maybe? The latch finally gives way. Rowan and I used it as a halfway point when we were marking new trails for the lodge. I test the door, finding it stuck from disuse and swollen wood. Stand back. I throw my shoulder against the weathered door, once, twice. On the third push, it gives way with a groan of protest. Stale air rushes out. It's musty and thick with dust, but wonderfully dry. After you, I say, stepping aside. Sarah peers into the dark interior. You sure there aren't, I don't know, bears hibernating in there or something? Wrong season for hibernation, I say with mock seriousness. But I'll protect you from any non-hibernating wildlife. I help her through the doorway into the cabin's single room. It's exactly as I remembered, if mustier. A simple space with rough-hewn log walls, a small stone fireplace on one end, and sparse furnishings. A narrow cot sits against one wall, covered in what was once a wool blanket, now gray with dust. A rickety table with a single chair occupies one corner, and a few shelves hold ancient cans and jars, their labels long faded. It's not much, I mutter, guiding Sarah toward the cot. But it'll keep us dry. She sinks onto the edge of the cot, wincing as she stretches out her injured leg. Right now, not drowning in rain feels like luxury. I glance around the cabin, taking in the sparse furnishings and years of dust. The rain hammers against the roof, a steady drumming that somehow makes the small space feel even more isolated from the outside world. Water drips from my hair, forming a small puddle at my feet. Sarah's shivering hasn't let up. Her clothes are soaked through, her face still too pale. I need to check that ankle properly, get her warm, maybe start a fire. But as I stand there, watching her attempt to wring water from her hair, I'm struck by the strangeness of being here. Alone with Sarah Miller in this forgotten cabin, miles from anyone else. I've guided countless people through these mountains, helped hikers in all sorts of predicaments, but this feels different. Because it's her. Sarah's teeth chatter as she tries to stop shivering, her hands rubbing up and down her arms in a futile attempt to generate warmth. The cot creaks beneath her weight, dust motes dancing in the air around her. "Let me check that ankle," I say, crouching down in front of her. She nods, extending her legs slightly. I carefully untie her hiking boot, easing it off as gently as possible. She still winces, a small hiss of pain escaping through clenched teeth. "Sorry," I murmur, setting the boot aside. Her sock is soaked through, the area around her ankle already swelling and turning an angry purple. I've seen enough sprains to know this one is bad. She won't be walking normally anytime soon. "Not great, huh?" she asks, watching my face. "It's definitely sprained," I confirm, gently probing the area. "But I don't think it's broken." I glance toward the fireplace, hoping to find something to burn. Getting her warm is the priority now. Her lips still have that bluish tinge I don't like. "I'm going to start a fire," I tell her, moving to the hearth. There's a small pile of old kindling in a box beside the fireplace, but a quick search of the cabin reveals no actual firewood. A glance out the window confirms what I already know. Everything outside is thoroughly soaked by the downpour. "No firewood," I say, frustration edging into my voice. "We could burn the chair, but—" I eye the rickety piece of furniture dubiously. Sarah pulls her knees up to her chest, making herself smaller. "It's okay. I'm not that cold." The lie is obvious in the tremor of her voice, the constant shivering. I scan the cabin, looking for anything that might help. I spot another wool blanket hanging from a hook near the door. It's dusty and probably hasn't been washed in years, but it's dry. I grab it, giving it a sharp shake to dispel the worst of the dust. "Not exactly five-star accommodations," I say, draping it around her shoulders. "Better than sitting in the rain," she replies, clutching the edges of the blanket and pulling it tight around herself. I kneel in front of her again, returning my attention to her ankle. I need to wrap this properly. I have a compression bandage in my pack. As I dig through my backpack for the first aid kit, I'm acutely aware of her gaze following me. The cabin suddenly feels much smaller than it did a moment ago. One small room, with barely 10 feet between the cot and the opposite wall. I find the elastic bandage and kneel before her again. This will help with the swelling, but it's going to hurt while I wrap it. She nods, steeling herself. "Do what you need to do." I take her foot in my hands as gently as possible, cradling her heel in my palm. Her skin is cold and damp from the rain, but somehow the contact still feels like warmth spreading up my arms. I focus on the task, wrapping the bandage with practiced precision, trying not to notice how small her ankle looks in my hands or how she bits her lower lip when I hit a tender spot. "You're good at this," she says softly. "Lots of practice." I secure the end of the bandage. Hazard of the job. My fingers linger a moment too long against her skin. I should move away now. Check the windows for drafts, maybe, or see if there's anything useful in the ancient cans on the shelves. But I don't move. I look up to find her watching me, those warm brown eyes reflecting the dim gray light from the single window. There's something in her expression I've never seen before. Or maybe never allowed myself to see. Vulnerability, yes, but something else too. Something that makes my heart beat faster. The rain hammers relentlessly against the roof, the sound amplified in the small space. A crack of thunder shakes the walls. But inside the cabin everything feels impossibly still. I'm suddenly aware of how close we are. My hand still holding her ankle, her face just inches above mine as I kneel before her. I can see the light dusting of freckles across her nose, the small scar at her temple from when she fell off her bike in 6th grade, the way her eyelashes clump together, still damp from the rain. This is Sarah. Sarah Miller. The girl who's been selling me coffee and scones every Tuesday for years. My friend since childhood. Not someone I should be noticing like this. I clear my throat and pull away, rising to my feet too quickly. Keep that elevated, I say, my voice rougher than I intended. I move to the window, putting distance between us, staring out at the sheets of rain still pummeling the forest. But even with my back turned, I'm aware of her presence, of the sound of the blanket rustling as she adjusts her position on the cot, of her soft exhale as she settles. Despite my best efforts, my eyes find their way back to her. Once. Twice. Each time, I force my gaze away, only for it to drift back moments later, drawn by some pull I don't want to analyze. The third time, she catches me looking. Our eyes lock, and something electric passes between us, a current I've never felt before with Sarah. Or maybe I have, but never let myself acknowledge it. She doesn't look away. Neither do I.
Chapter 5. Sarah. The rain finally eases as Connor's truck rumbles down Main Street. After hours trapped in that small cabin, too aware of his every movement, his every glance, the familiar storefronts of Elk Ridge are a welcome distraction. Mrs. Henderson sweeping water from the sidewalk in front of her flower shop. The post office flag whipping in the wind. Everyday sights that somehow look different now, as if the mountain has changed me in some fundamental way. My ankle throbs beneath the careful wrapping Connor applied. The makeshift splint he fashioned from branches helps, but each bump in the road sends a fresh jolt of pain up my leg. Sorry, Connor mutters when we hit a pothole, his knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. They really need to fix this road. It's fine, I say automatically. We haven't spoken much since leaving the cabin. Once the rain lightened enough to make the trek back to his truck possible, we fell into a silent rhythm. His arm around my waist, my weight against his side, the careful navigation of muddy trails. By the time we reached his vehicle, the storm had mostly passed, leaving behind the particular stillness that follows heavy rain, the forest dripping and renewed. A sudden thought jolts me. My car is still at the trailhead. Connor nods. I know. I'll take care of it. How? I need it for deliveries tomorrow. I'll get Rowan to help me bring it down tonight, he says, so matter-of-factly that I believe him instantly. You're not driving on that ankle anyway. I start to protest, then stop. He's right. I can barely walk, let alone press a clutch pedal. As we approach my small house behind the bakery, that strange tension from the cabin lingers between us, a presence as tangible as the humidity. You don't have to come in, I tell him as he parks beside my hatchback. I can manage. He gives me a look that I've seen thousands of times over the years, usually directed at inexperienced hikers. I'm helping you inside. Before I can protest further, he's out of the truck and coming around to my side. He opens the door, then reaches in to help me down, his hand strong and sure on my waist. I try not to lean into his touch, to maintain what little distance I can. But my traitor ankle gives way the moment it touches the ground, and I find myself clutching at his shoulders to stay upright. Careful, he says, his voice low, close to my ear. His arms wrap around me, steadying me, and for a moment, we're as close as we were in that cabin, his chest against mine, his breath warming my cheek. My heart hammers against my ribs, and I wonder if he can feel it. Then he clears his throat and shifts, keeping one arm around my waist but creating space between us. Let's get you inside. The short walk to my front door takes 3 times longer than normal. Each step is a negotiation, a lesson in patience and pain. Connor matches his pace to mine without comment, solid and dependable beside me. My key sticks in the lock as it always does, requiring the particular jiggle I've perfected over years. Connor watches, then takes the key from my fingers. Left, then up, I instruct, too tired to insist on doing it myself. He follows my directions, and the door swings open to reveal my small, cluttered living room, the oversized armchair draped with a half-finished knitting project, books stacked on nearly every surface, the collection of mismatched teacups arranged on the windowsill. It's nothing like the polished perfection of the lodge, and I feel a sudden pang of self-consciousness. Sorry for the mess, I say. Connor shakes his head as he helps me to the couch. This isn't a mess. This is. His eyes sweep the room. This is you. I'm not sure if that's a compliment or an observation. Before I can decide, he's kneeling in front of me again, helping me prop my injured ankle on a cushion. You should ice this, he says. 20 minutes on, 20 off. And keep it elevated. I know, I say. This isn't my first sprain. He rises to his feet, running a hand through his still damp hair. This is a bad one. Don't underestimate it. There's something in his gaze that makes my chest tighten. Concern, yes, but also a warmth that I'm afraid to interpret. It's the same look he had in the cabin, the one that made me think, just for a moment, that maybe. But no. This is Connor. He would do the same for anyone. I'll get you some ice, he says, already heading toward my kitchen. Second drawer from the fridge, I call after him. There are zip-top bags in there. I listen to him moving around my kitchen, opening drawers, the clatter of ice cubes, the running of water. It's strange having him here, in my space. In all the years I've known him, Connor has never been inside my house. Our interactions have always been at the bakery, or the lodge, or passing on the street. In public places with clear boundaries. Now those boundaries feel blurred, like the edges of the mountains in morning mist. He returns with an ice pack wrapped in a clean dish towel. This should do the trick. I accept it. Thank you. For everything. I'm sorry you had to rescue me. Don't apologize. He settles into the armchair across from me, moving my knitting to the side with careful hands. Just promise me something? What? Next time you want to go hiking, tell me. We'll go together. The offer sends a flutter through my chest that I immediately try to suppress. This isn't special treatment. Connor takes people hiking for a living. It's what he does. I don't think I'll be hiking again anytime soon, I say with a weak smile. Not until that ankle's better, no. He leans forward, elbows on his knees. Do you need anything else? Food? Water? I can grab whatever you need before I go. His solicitousness both warms and stings. I want to believe it means something, that his care extends beyond basic human decency. But I've spent too many years watching Connor Callahan from afar, too many Tuesdays seeing him walk out of my bakery without a backward glance, to let myself fall into that trap. I'm fine, I say, perhaps too firmly. Really? You've done more than enough. I remember my car again and dig into my pocket, pulling out my keys. For my car, I say, holding them out. If you're sure it's not too much trouble. He takes the keys, his fingers brushing mine. No trouble. He studies me for a long moment, then nods, pushing to his feet. I'll check on you tomorrow. You don't have to. I know. Our eyes meet, and there's that something again, that unreadable expression that makes my pulse quicken. I want to. I don't trust myself to respond without revealing the hope blooming in my chest, so I simply nod. At the door, he turns back. Call if you need anything. Anything at all. I will. And then he's gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click that feels somehow final. I listen to his truck start, the sound of tires on gravel, then silence. I close my eyes, the ice pack cold against my skin, and try to make sense of the day. Of the storm, the cabin, the way Connor looked at me. But all I can think is that his protectiveness, his care, his concern, none of it means what I want it to mean. It's not love. It's Connor being Connor. He's the dependable guide, the reliable rescuer, the good man who would never leave anyone stranded on a mountain in a storm. even if that someone is the baker who sells him coffee and scones once a week. It takes me twice as long as usual to get ready for work the next morning. Every movement is a careful negotiation with my injured ankle. Maya offered to open the bakery alone, but I insisted on coming in. I need the normalcy, the comfort of flour on my hands and the scent of bread baking. I hobble through the back door at 5 a.m., leaning heavily on the crutches Connor dropped off last night. He left them on my porch with a note that simply read, "Use these." I didn't hear his truck. Didn't know he'd been back until I found them propped against my door when I reluctantly checked to see if my car had been returned. It was there, parked exactly where I always leave it, keys in the mailbox. The bakery is dark and quiet, the oven's cold. I'm flipping on lights and setting down my bag when a knock at the front door startles me. Through the glass, I see a familiar silhouette. Connor. My heart does that stupid little flutter it always does at the sight of him, but stronger now, charged with memories of yesterday. Memories of his arms around me, his hands gentle on my ankle, the way he looked at me in that cabin. I maneuver my way to the door, trying to appear more steady on the crutches than I feel. The lock clicks open, and there he is, 2 to-go cups from the coffee loft in his hands. "Morning," he says, as if showing up at my bakery before dawn is perfectly normal. "Thought you might need this." He holds out one of the cups. The rich aroma of the lodge's special dark roast reaches my nose. "Thanks," I say, accepting it. "But isn't this against the rules? Bringing another venue's coffee into my bakery?" The corner of his mouth quirks up. "I won't tell if you won't." I step back, balancing awkwardly on my good leg. "Do you want to come in?" He nods, following me inside. The familiar bell chimes as the door swings shut behind him, but everything else about this moment feels foreign. Connor Callahan in my bakery at 5 in the morning, not on a Tuesday, carrying coffee he brought for me. "How's the ankle?" he asks, watching me navigate to the counter. "Been better, I admit. But the crutches help." "Thank you for those." He shrugs. "We have a couple at the lodge just in case. Seemed like you could use them." I take a sip of the coffee. It's strong and black, exactly how I like it in the morning. "And my car? Did you have any trouble getting it back?" "No trouble." He leans against the counter, making no move to leave. His gaze sweeps over the display cases, still empty, waiting for the day's baking. "Need any help setting up?" The offer catches me off guard. "Don't you have hikers to guide? Mountains to climb?" "Not until 10, he says. Lodge has a group doing the summit hike." "Oh." I clutch my coffee cup tighter, unsure what to make of this. Connor has never lingered in my bakery before. Never offered to help. Never brought me coffee or checked on me or looked at me with this particular intensity that makes my skin warm despite the early morning chill. "So," he prompts. "What can I do?" "You don't have to." "I know." The same words from yesterday, spoken in the same way. "I want to. And I don't know what to do with that." With this version of Connor who shows up before dawn bearing coffee and offers to help and looks at me like what? I'm not sure. All I know is it's different from before, and I'm afraid to trust it. "The dough for the morning bread needs to be shaped," I finally say, gesturing toward the kitchen. "If you're serious about helping." He pushes away from the counter. "Show me what to do." I follow him into the kitchen, my heart pounding for reasons that have nothing to do with exertion. Is he just checking on me because he feels responsible? Or is this something more? As he rolls up his sleeves, revealing strong forearms dusted with dark hair, I realize I'm afraid to find out.
Chapter 6. Connor. "I think that's the last customer," I say, flipping the sign on the door to closed. The sun is setting over Main Street, casting long shadows through the bakery windows. It's been a week since the storm, since finding Sarah on that trail, since something shifted between us that I still can't name. I've been stopping by the bakery more often. Not just Tuesdays now, but almost daily. At first, I told myself it was just to check on her ankle. then to help while she was on crutches. Today, I ran out of excuses and simply showed up. Sarah looks up from wiping down the counter, a loose strand of hair falling across her cheek. She tucks it behind her ear, leaving a smudge of flour on her temple. "Thanks," she says. "You really don't have to stay and help close up." "I know. It's become our refrain over the past week." "I know. I want to." She moves with more confidence now, the limp barely noticeable. But I've caught her wincing when she thinks no one is looking, the long hours on her feet taking their toll. "How's the ankle?" I ask, gathering empty plates from the last table. "Better." She empties the register, counting bills with practiced efficiency. "Dr. Wagner says I can probably ditch the brace in another week." I nod, secretly wondering what excuse I'll have to keep showing up once she's fully healed. The thought unsettles me. When did Sarah Miller become someone I look for reasons to see? "Almost done," she says. "Just need to finish up the day's paperwork in the back, then we can lock up." I follow her into the office behind the kitchen, a small space cramped with filing cabinets, a desk covered with papers, and a bulletin board plastered with recipes torn from magazines. It's organized chaos, much like her house. Everything in its own strange order that somehow makes sense to her. "Can I get you anything before you go?" she asks, shifting a stack of papers to make room for the day's receipts. "There's half a loaf of sourdough left. Or some of those chocolate chip cookies you pretend not to like but always eat 3 of." I laugh. "I don't pretend not to like them. Connor, every time I offer you one, you say maybe just one and then eat at least 3. She knows my habits. The realization warms something in my chest. "Fine. I'll take some cookies." She smiles, that real smile that reaches her eyes, not the polite one she gives customers. "There are napkins on the shelf. Grab some and I'll wrap them up." I reach for the napkins, my elbow catching the edge of a folder. It tips, sending papers cascading across the desk and onto the floor. "Sorry," I mutter, crouching to gather them. "Don't worry about it," she says, kneeling beside me despite her ankle. That's when I see them. Photos. Not the digital prints most people have nowadays, but proper photographs, developed with care on high-quality paper. I pick one up. It's of an elderly couple sitting on a bench in the town square, holding hands. The composition is perfect, the light catching the woman's silver hair like a halo. Another shows a child leaping through a puddle, suspended in midair, joy captured in motion. "These are really good," I say, gathering more. There's Catherine, laughing behind the counter at the coffee loft. The mayor feeding pigeons. Mrs. Henderson arranging flowers in her shop window. Then I find one that stops my breath. It's me. Standing near the lodge, my back to the camera, silhouetted against the light. But it's not just a silhouette. Somehow, Sarah has captured the moment just as I turn slightly, my profile visible, eyes closed, face tilted toward the sun. The shot catches my features in a way that shows peace. Contentment. A stillness I didn't know my face could reveal. I've seen countless photos of myself over the years, family pictures, promotional shots for the lodge's website, selfies with hiking groups. But I've never seen myself like this. Never known I could look like this. "When did you take this?" My voice comes out rougher than intended. Sarah freezes, her eyes widening when she sees what I'm holding. She reaches for it, but I move it just beyond her grasp, still staring. "Sarah." A blush rises on her cheeks. "Last summer. I was making a delivery and took a couple of pictures of the garden. But she hadn't photographed the lodge's garden that morning. She'd photographed me. You never showed me this." Her blush deepens. "It's nothing. Just something I was practicing with light and shadow techniques. I should have asked permission." I look back at the photo. It's not just technically good. It's intimate somehow. Like she saw something in me that no one else bothers to look for. "You're really talented," I say, finally meeting her eyes. "All of these, they're amazing." She ducks her head, gathering the other photos quickly. It's only a hobby. A serious hobby, from the looks of it. I gesture to the dozens of photos. How long have you been doing this? Since high school. My mom gave me my first camera for my 16th birthday. She takes the photos from my hands, but I keep hold of the one of me. You can, keep that if you want. Or I can get rid of it. I know it's weird that I'd like to keep it, I interrupt, surprising both of us. Sarah stills, her eyes meeting mine with a question in them I'm not sure how to answer. Why would I want this photo? What does it mean that she took it in the first place? Okay, she says softly. I'm sitting on my cabin's porch, staring at the photo for what must be the 20th time tonight. The lodge is quiet, guests settled in for the evening. A light breeze rustles through the pines, carrying the scent of approaching summer. But I barely notice any of it. All I can see is this image. Me, caught in a moment of complete peace. The kind of moment I rarely allow myself to have, much less show to others. And Sarah saw it. Captured it. Kept it. You're going to wear that photo out if you keep staring at it like that. I look up to find my mother standing at the bottom of the porch steps, a thermos in her hand. Even in the dim light, I can see the knowing look in her eyes. Just checking my good side, I joke weakly, making no move to put the photo away. Mom doesn't miss much. She climbs the steps with the grace of a woman half her age and settles into the chair beside mine, setting the thermos between us. Chamomile, she says, nodding toward it. You look like you could use it. I'm fine. She doesn't contradict me, just waits in that patient way of hers. I sigh, giving in. Sarah took it. Sarah Miller. The baker. There's no question in her voice. Yeah. I pass her the photo. She has this whole collection. Street photography. People around town. They're really good. My mother studies the image, her expression softening. She captured something special here. That's what bothers me, I admit. I didn't know I ever looked like that. Like what? She prompts. I don't know. At peace, maybe? I run a hand through my hair. The thing is, she took this last summer. And the way she looked when I found it, like I discovered some secret. My mother hands the photo back, her eyes too perceptive. Maybe you did. The implication hangs in the air between us. I've suspected for days now, but haven't allowed myself to fully form the thought. She's always been there, I say finally. At the bakery. At town events. Just there. And I never really saw her. Not the way she apparently saw me. And now? My mother's voice is gentle. Now I can't stop seeing her. The admission feels like letting go of something I've been clutching too tightly. How long has she felt this way? How did I miss it? Evie pats my knee. Sometimes the things we're looking for are right in front of us all along. I wasn't looking for anything. Weren't you? She stands, pressing a kiss to the top of my head like she did when I was small. Drink your tea, Connor. And maybe consider that Sarah Miller might be exactly what you've been needing without realizing it. She leaves me with that thought, her footsteps fading as she returns to the main lodge. I look back at the photo, seeing it differently now. It's not just how Sarah sees me. It's evidence of how long she's been seeing me. The real me. Not the guide, the brother, the Callahan son that everyone else knows. And I've been blind. Coming to her bakery week after week, brushing past her like she was just part of the scenery. Never noticing how her eyes followed me, how she remembered exactly how I took my coffee, how she always had blueberry scones on Tuesdays. Sarah Miller has known me, really known me, all this time.
Chapter 7. Sarah. I round the corner to the bakery just as dawn breaks, the familiar silhouette of my storefront coming into view. The morning is quiet, Main Street still sleepy, most shops hours from opening. This is my favorite time of day. Just me, the dough, and the promise of what's to come. Except I'm not alone this morning. Connor sits on the bench outside my bakery, standing when he sees me approach. Something about the way he straightens, the way his eyes find mine and hold, makes my heart skip. "Morning," he says, hands tucked into his jacket pockets against the early chill. "Thought I'd come help out today." Oh. I'm momentarily thrown by his presence, by the casual way he's made himself part of my morning. "Thanks." I fumble with my keys, hyper-conscious of him watching me. "Last night. The photos." He saw the photo. And a dozen others, but that one, the one of him, that's the one that matters. That's the one that gives away too much. The door swings open, and I step into the familiar darkness of my bakery. Connor follows without invitation, something he never would have done weeks ago. Something he never would have done before the storm. "You don't have to help today," I say, flipping on lights, setting down my bag. "I'm sure you have guide stuff to do." "Not until later." He shrugs out of his jacket, hanging it on the coat rack by the door as if he's done it 100 times before. As if he belongs here. What can I do? I should tell him nothing. Should maintain some distance, protect myself from the hope fluttering dangerously in my chest. But the words that come out are, "The ovens need preheating." He nods, heading for the kitchen with familiar confidence. He's been here enough in the past week to know where things are, how I like them set up. It should feel like an intrusion, someone in my space, disrupting my routine. Instead, it feels like something sliding into place. I follow him, watching as he adjusts the oven dials to the exact temperature I prefer, then washes his hands at the sink. "I'll start the coffee," he says, moving toward the industrial coffee maker. "Maya should be here in about 15 minutes, right? You've got her schedule memorized?" I ask, surprised by how much he's noticed. He shrugs, measuring coffee grounds with practiced ease. I pay attention. He glances up, something warm in his eyes. "Just like I know she takes hers with 2 sugars and that vanilla creamer you keep hidden in the back of the fridge." He does know. He knows where I keep the filters, how I organize the pastry bags and which drawer holds the extra aprons. We work in companionable silence for a while, me kneading dough while he measures coffee grounds. The familiarity of it, the quiet rhythm of 2 people who know the dance, makes my chest ache with a longing I try not to name. "I like your photos," he says suddenly, his back to me as he reaches for mugs. My hand still in the dough. "They're just a hobby." "They're more than that." He turns, those blue eyes too perceptive. "You have a gift, Sarah. You see things other people don't. Like you, I think but don't say." "I see you." The bell over the door chimes, saving me from having to respond. Maya arrives in a flurry of movement, unwinding her scarf as she steps inside. "Morning, boss," she calls, then spots Connor. Her eyebrows rise slightly. "Morning, Connor. Didn't realize you were on the payroll now." He laughs, pouring a cup of coffee and adding the exact amount of sugar and creamer Maya likes. "Just earning my keep." "Well, I'm not complaining," she says, accepting the mug with a too-knowing smile. "Sarah's been much less grumpy with you around." "Maya," I warn, my cheeks warming. "What?" "It's true. You used to stomp around all morning until at least your second cup of coffee. Now you're practically singing when I arrive." "I don't sing," I mutter, focusing intently on my dough. "Humming," then, Maya concedes, winking at Connor before disappearing into the back to hang up her things. When I dare to look up, Connor is watching me with an expression I can't quite read. "You hum?" "Don't let it go to your head," I say, but there's no bite to my words. "I hum when I'm content." Something shifts in his gaze, softens. "Good." The morning moves quickly after that. Maya and I prepare to open, while Connor helps where he can. The man is washing dishes, carrying trays, and keeping the coffee flowing. It shouldn't work, having him here, but somehow it does. By the time we flip the sign to open, the display cases are full, the air rich with the scent of fresh bread and pastries, and my cheeks ache from smiling more than usual. Our first customer is the retired high school principal who comes in every morning for a bran muffin and coffee. His eyebrows rise when he spots Connor behind the counter. "Well, look who's here," he says, grinning. "Didn't know you were a regular, Callahan." In the past, Connor might have offered a polite nod, maybe a brief explanation for his presence. Instead, he reaches for a mug, filling it with black coffee. "Getting to be," Connor says, setting the coffee on the counter. His eyes find mine across the bakery. "Sarah makes it worth stopping by." The principal looks between us, his smile widening. "I'm sure she does." I busy myself with arranging scones, trying to ignore the knowing look on the older man's face, the way my pulse quickens under Connor's steady gaze. This is dangerous territory. Reading too much into small kindnesses, casual compliments. Setting myself up for disappointment. But when he leaves and Connor steps behind the counter, close enough that our shoulders brush, I can't help the flutter in my chest. It's hope I've spent years trying to extinguish, now threatening to ignite into something uncontrollable. "Sarah." His voice is low, just for me. "About that photo." The bell chimes again as more customers enter, cutting him off. Whatever he was about to say will have to wait. But the way he looks at me before stepping back, the warmth in his eyes, the slight upturn of his lips, feels like a promise. The evening air has that perfect early summer quality. It's warm without being hot, the air scented with blooming flowers and the promise of longer days. Main Street is lively with Elk Ridge's Thursday evening summer concert series, the small town square filled with locals on picnic blankets and folding chairs while vendors sell ice cream and lemonade from carts along the periphery. I'm leaving the post office, a stack of bills paid and ready for tomorrow's mail pickup, when I spot him. Connor stands at the edge of the square, away from the gathered crowd, his attention focused on an elderly man playing violin. He's completely still, hands in his pockets, head slightly tilted. He's listening with his whole body in that intense way he has, as if he's absorbing every note. I pause, watching him. Most people would walk past the old violinist without a second glance. But that's Connor, noticing the things others miss, appreciating what most ignore. It's one of the first things I ever loved about him, though I'd never admit that aloud. For a moment, I consider turning away, continuing my errands without interrupting his solitude. But something pulls me toward him, the same magnetic force that's been drawing me closer since the storm. "I never took you for a classical music fan," I say, stepping up beside him. Connor doesn't startle, but his eyes warm when they land on me. "There's a lot you don't know about me." "Apparently." I smile, nodding toward the violinist. "Though I have noticed you always leave extra tips for the string quartet that plays at the lodge's summer events." His eyebrows rise slightly. "You've been watching me." Heat rushes to my cheeks. After the photo incident, it's too close to an admission. I notice things. Occupational hazard of being a baker. Details matter. Occupational hazard of being a photographer too, I'd imagine. His voice is casual, but his eyes are anything but. The violin music swells around us, filling the silence that stretches between us. I wrap my arms around myself, suddenly nervous. "Speaking of which," Connor continues, turning to face me fully, "you mentioned your mom gave you your first camera when you were 16. Was that when you knew you loved photography, or did that come later?" "It wasn't really a choice after that first camera." I watch the violinist's fingers dance across the strings, finding it easier than meeting Connor's gaze. More like a compulsion. Some moments need to be preserved. Like me at the lodge? My eyes snap to his, heart stumbling. There it is. The direct acknowledgement of the photo I hoped we might politely avoid mentioning ever again. That was, I start, then stop, not sure how to explain without revealing too much. The light was good. "Sarah." Just my name, but the way he says it, soft, almost coaxing, makes my defenses crumble. I like to capture the things people don't see, I admit finally. The quiet moments. The real ones, not the posed smiles or the perfect angles people put on social media. Just truth. Connor studies me, his expression thoughtful. And what truth were you capturing that day? We're venturing into dangerous territory now. My pulse quickens, and I scramble for an answer that won't expose the years of silent longing, the careful attention I've paid to his every habit, the way I've catalogued his expressions in my mind like precious artifacts. That you have another side, I say carefully. Beyond the mountain guide, the Callahan brother. Something quieter. More contemplative. He takes a step closer, close enough that I can smell the faint pine scent that always clings to him. And why did you want to capture that? Because, I swallow hard, caught between the urge to flee and the desperate need to finally say what I've kept locked away for so long. Because sometimes I think I'm the only one who sees it. Connor's eyes darken, and he draws in a breath like he's about to say something important. His hand moves, fingers just brushing against mine, the contact sending sparks up my arm even though it's barely a touch. Sarah, I've been thinking about. The shrill buzz of his phone cuts through the moment. Connor closes his eyes briefly, frustration flashing across his face before he pulls the device from his pocket. The screen illuminates his features as he checks the message. It's Liam, he mutters. Emergency at the lodge. A water main break in the east wing. Oh. The word comes out small, deflated. I have to go. His expression is apologetic, almost pained. Sarah. It's fine, I say quickly, stepping back, rebuilding the walls that had started to crumble. Go. The lodge needs you. He hesitates, clearly torn, phone buzzing again in his hand. We should finish this conversation. Sure. I force a smile. Another time. Connor takes one last look at me, something unreadable in his eyes, before he turns and jogs toward his truck parked down the street. I watch him go, the violin's melody suddenly seeming melancholy in the gathering twilight. What just happened? What was he about to say before Liam's text?
Chapter 8. Connor. Saturday morning's farmer's market is already in full swing by the time I arrive, the town square transformed into a maze of colorful canopies and bustling shoppers. The scent of fresh bread and flowers mingles in the air as I make my way through the crowd, scanning the familiar layout of stalls. I spot Miller's Bakery set up in its usual corner location. It's a simple white tent with a hand-painted sign, display cases filled with pastries and bread. Maya is arranging cinnamon rolls while Sarah chats with an elderly customer, her smile bright despite what must have been an early morning. Something about watching her from a distance, seeing her in her element without her knowing I'm there, reminds me of that photograph she took of me. Is this how she felt, capturing a moment that wasn't meant for her? I weave through the crowd, making my way to her stall. Sarah looks up as I approach, surprise flickering across her face before her smile widens. Connor! Didn't expect to see you here today. She hands change to her customer before turning to me. Especially after that flooding emergency last night. Shouldn't you be sleeping? Probably, I admit, stifling a yawn. The 3 hours I managed before my internal clock woke me barely count. Sorry again for having to rush off like that. No need to apologize, she says with a shrug. Emergencies happen. Mrs. Henderson's niece is staying at the lodge. Said half the east wing had no water until nearly dawn. More like 4 a.m., I correct, leaning against the edge of her table. Took Liam and me most of the night to replace the damaged section. Turns out the original pipes were older than we thought. Maya appears beside Sarah, eyebrows raised. Connor Callahan, plumber extraordinaire. Is there anything you mountain men can't do? Make cinnamon rolls like Sarah's, I answer promptly, eyeing the perfect rows of pastries. Even Declan admits no one's mastered her technique. Sarah laughs, the sound warming something in my chest despite my exhaustion. She's wearing a simple sundress today instead of her usual bakery attire, her hair pulled back in a loose braid with a few strands escaping to frame her face. There's a smudge of flour on her forearm that she must have missed, the small imperfection somehow making her more real, more tangible. So what brings you to the market, she asks. Stocking up on survival supplies? Actually, I say, the idea forming as I speak, I came to make you an offer. Oh. Her head tilts slightly, curious. When was the last time you actually experienced the farmer's market? As a customer, I mean, not working behind your stall? Sarah considers this, then shakes her head. I can't remember. We've had a stall here every Saturday during market season for years. That's what I thought. I straighten up, sudden energy displacing my fatigue. Maya, how would you feel about managing the stall alone for an hour or so? Maya's eyes dart between us, a knowing smile spreading across her face. I think I could handle that. It's past the morning rush anyway. Connor, I can't just abandon, Sarah begins. It's not abandoning, I counter. It's delegating. And it's only for an hour. Maya nods enthusiastically. Go, Sarah. Enjoy being on the other side of the table for once. I've got this covered. Sarah hesitates, her sense of responsibility warring with temptation. Are you sure? Positive, Maya insists, already gently nudging Sarah out from behind the table. Consider it market research. See what the competition is up to. There's no competition for your cinnamon rolls, I assure her, offering my arm in a half-joking gesture. Shall we? To my surprise, Sarah actually takes it, her fingers light on my forearm. I suppose I could use a break, she concedes, though the eager look in her eyes belies her reluctant tone. 1 hour, Maya calls after us as we step away from the stall. And don't you dare come back with any pastries from other vendors. The market feels different walking through it with Sarah. The place is more alive somehow, as if seeing it through her eyes enhances the colors, the sounds, the energy of it. She moves with a kind of restrained excitement, her steps quickening as we approach the first row of produce stalls. I've been eyeing Mrs. Wilson's strawberries for weeks, she confesses, leading me toward a table piled with ruby red berries. They always sell out before I can get away from our stall. Then strawberries it is, I say, following her lead. Mrs. Wilson's face lights up at the sight of Sarah. Well, if it isn't the baker herself. Finally stepping out from behind your own table? Connor talked me into a temporary reprieve, Sarah explains, picking up a carton of strawberries and inhaling their sweet scent. Good for him. Mrs. Wilson gives me an approving nod. You work too hard, dear. Always have. We continue through the market, Sarah stopping at nearly every stall, examining produce with expert hands, greeting vendors by name. I find myself carrying an increasingly heavy collection of purchases, herbs, tomatoes, a wedge of cheese from the dairy farm outside town. But I don't mind. There's something satisfying about watching her enjoy this simple pleasure she rarely gets to experience. Admit it, she says as we pause by a display of local honey. You're using those famous survival skills right now, aren't you? How so? Carrying all this without complaint. She gestures to the bags looped over my arm. Probably using some special wilderness guide technique for weight distribution. I laugh. Yes, it's a very advanced skill. They teach it in Mountain Man 101. I knew it. Her eyes sparkle with mischief. Next you'll be fashioning a backpack out of market tablecloths and string. Only in emergencies, I deadpan. And what about last night? Was that your advanced plumbing course in action? The reminder of the water main brings back the bone-deep fatigue I'd momentarily forgotten. That was more like hands-on learning. Liam and I figured it out as we went. Instead of calling a professional, she observes. The nearest plumber is an hour away in the city. We couldn't leave the guests without water that long. As we move toward the next stall, I spot a familiar figure examining a display of local jams. Lauren, dressed in casual weekend clothes rather than her usual office attire, looks different outside the lodge setting, more relaxed, less like the woman whose presence has been making my brother tense for weeks. She glances up, noticing us, and for a moment looks like she might turn and walk in the opposite direction. But then she squares her shoulders and approaches. Connor, she greets me with a small smile before turning to Sarah. And you must be Sarah Miller. I've heard a lot about you. Lauren, I nod. Sarah, this is Lauren Abbott. She's the lodge's new bookkeeper. And Liam's ex-wife, Lauren, adds an edge to her smile. Might as well get that out in the open. Sarah's eyebrows rise slightly, but she recovers quickly. Nice to meet you. I've seen you at the bakery, haven't I? Thursday morning, almond croissant and black coffee? Lauren looks surprised. You remember that? Sarah remembers everyone's orders, I explain, feeling an odd sense of pride. It's part of the job, Sarah says with a modest shrug. Speaking of jobs, Lauren says, your mother's quarterly budget reviews are much more detailed than I expected, Connor. I was up late last night sorting through her filing system. That sounds like Edie, Sarah comments with a knowing smile. She tests everyone she hires, I explain. If you survive the first month of her systems, you're in for life. Lauren's expression softens a fraction. Good to know. She glances between us, something knowing in her gaze. I should let you two get back to your shopping. Nice to officially meet you, Sarah. As she walks away, Sarah looks at me with undisguised curiosity. So that's the famous Lauren Abbott? Catherine mentioned something about Liam's ex working at the lodge now. Mom hired her without warning anyone. Liam nearly had a heart attack her first day. Sarah considers this, her head tilted slightly. She seems competent. She is. That's part of the problem. She's good at her job, so Liam can't even complain about that. Sarah smiles, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Your mother is either a genius or terribly cruel. With Mom, it's usually both, I admit. But we should probably focus on our market adventure instead of my family drama. So you just learned plumbing on the spot? She shakes her head in amazement. I shrug. Dad always said a man should know how to fix what's broken. Your father would be proud, she says softly, her teasing tone giving way to something gentler. The way you all stepped up after he passed, keeping the lodge running, taking care of each other and the town. The unexpected mention of my father catches me off guard. People don't usually bring him up, especially not with such simple sincerity. It's what needed to be done, I say finally, the words feeling inadequate for the years of work, of responsibility, of holding everything together. We walk in comfortable silence for a moment, weaving between stalls, the market sounds washing over us. Sarah pauses to examine a display of homemade jams, but her thoughts seem elsewhere. You're good at that, you know, she says suddenly, her voice thoughtful. Taking care of things. Of people. Just doing what anyone would do, I reply automatically. She laughs, but it's soft, without mockery. That's exactly what someone who always takes care of others would say. Her laughter fades, replaced by a look of genuine curiosity. You do take care of everyone, Connor. But who takes care of you? I stop walking, her words hitting me with unexpected force. The farmer's market continues to bustle around us, but the sounds seem to fade as I stare at her, caught off guard by the simple question no one has ever thought to ask me before. I start, then stop, unsure how to respond. Sarah stands before me, her eyes clear and direct, filled with a kind of gentle understanding that makes my chest ache. There's no judgment there, no expectation, just genuine concern and something deeper, more vulnerable that I can't quite name. I don't need taking care of, I finally manage, the words sounding hollow even to my own ears. Everyone does, she says simply. Even the strongest people. Maybe especially them. The farmer's market has been closed for nearly an hour, the once bustling town square now quiet except for a few vendors still packing up their unsold goods. Sarah's stall is already dismantled, folding tables collapsed and leftover pastries carefully boxed up for tomorrow's day-old shelf at the bakery. You really don't have to walk me home, Sarah says as I take the heavier of her bags. It's just a few blocks. I know, I reply, falling into step beside her. After our market walk earlier, and her question that's been echoing in my mind all day, I found myself lingering as she and Maya closed down their stall, offering to help without quite knowing why. Except that's not entirely true. I do know why. I want to. Her smile is small but genuine. Well, since you insisted on helping break down the stall, I suppose I can accept the escort service too. At your service, I say with a mock bow that makes her laugh. Evie raised you boys right. She tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The simple gesture draws my attention to the curve of her neck, the light freckles dusting her skin that I've somehow never noticed before. The strawberries she bought are nestled in one of the bags, their sweet scent rising in the afternoon heat. I imagine her in her kitchen later, transforming them into something delicious, tarts or scones or whatever magic she works in that bakery of hers. What will you make with these? I ask, lifting the bags slightly. She considers for a moment. Probably a galette. Simple, rustic. Lets the berries speak for themselves. I don't know what a galette is, but it sounds good. She laughs. It's like a free-form pie. No fuss, no fancy crimping. Just good ingredients handled with care. Like most worthwhile things, I say, the words coming out more serious than I intended. Her steps slow slightly, her eyes finding mine with that perceptive look that seems to see straight through all my defenses. For a moment, I think she might revisit her earlier question, press on that tender spot she uncovered at the market. But she just nods, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. We reach her house, the small cottage behind her bakery with its cheerful blue door and window boxes spilling over with summer blooms. The porch is just big enough for 2 rocking chairs and a small table, a cozy space that somehow suits her perfectly. This is me, she says unnecessarily, climbing the 3 steps to her porch. Thank you for the escort home. And for the market adventure. I follow her up, setting the bags carefully on the small table. Thanks for the company. We stand there on her porch, the afternoon stretching golden around us. A light breeze carries the scent of her flowers, lavender and something else I can't name, mingling with the lingering sweetness of strawberries. In the distance, a wind chime sings softly from a neighbor's yard. Neither of us moves to leave. Neither of us seems to know what to say next. The silence between us grows, not uncomfortable but charged with something I've been trying not to name. Sarah tilts her head slightly, her eyes never leaving mine. The sunlight catches in her hair, turning the brown to amber and gold. Are you going to overthink this? She asks, her voice soft but steady, or are you going to kiss me? The world stills. For a heartbeat, I can't move, can't breathe. Her words hang in the air between us, direct and unambiguous. No room for misinterpretation, no way to retreat behind careful distance or practiced detachment. Sarah, my voice is rough, foreign to my own ears. Because you've been looking at me like you want to, she continues, something vulnerable flickering beneath her boldness. 4 days now. Maybe longer. She's right. Of course she's right. This woman who sees everything, who captures moments others miss, who asks the one question no one's ever thought to ask me. Of course she's seen this too, the pull I've been fighting since that day on the mountain. I exhale sharply, decision made. In 2 steps, I close the distance between us. My hands find her face, cradling her cheeks with a gentleness that contradicts the thunder of my heartbeat. Her skin is warm beneath my fingertips, soft in a way I've imagined but never let myself dwell on. For a moment, I just look at her, her eyes wide and clear, her lips slightly parted, the dusting of freckles across her nose that most people never get close enough to notice. Then I lower my head and press my lips to hers. The first touch is soft, tentative. It's a question rather than a declaration. Her lips are warm and taste faintly of strawberries, sweet and sunripe. The scent of her surrounds me, vanilla and flower and something uniquely Sarah that I've caught hints of in the bakery but never this close, this undiluted. She makes a small sound in the back of her throat, her hands coming up to grip the front of my shirt, and something breaks loose inside me. Years of carefully maintained distance, of not noticing, of pretending she was just the baker who made my favorite scones, all of it dissolves in the warmth of her mouth against mine. I deepen the kiss, one hand sliding to the nape of her neck, fingers threading through the soft hair at the base of her braid. She responds immediately, rising slightly on her toes, her body fitting against mine as if we've done this 1,000 times before. As if this was always where we were meant to end up. The world narrows to just this. The softness of her lips, the gentle pressure of her hands against my chest, the mingled taste of strawberries and possibility. For once, I'm not thinking ahead, not planning, not calculating risks. Just feeling. When she finally pulls back, her cheeks are flushed, her eyes bright. Her smile spreads slowly, full of mischief and something that looks suspiciously like triumph. "Took you long enough," she murmurs, her breath warm against my lips. The laugh that escapes me is surprised, genuine. If I'd known what I was missing, I might have moved faster. Better late than never. Her fingers trace a pattern on my chest, just above my heart. "Though you've got some catching up to do." I'm a quick study, I promise, reluctant to release her but aware we're standing in full view of anyone who might pass by. Sarah steps back, her smile softening into something more private. "I should get these inside," she says, gesturing to the bags of produce. "Before the strawberries go bad in this heat." "Right." I clear my throat, hands suddenly empty and uncertain. She picks up her bags, then pauses at her door, key in hand. "For the record," she says, looking back over her shoulder, "that was worth the wait."
Chapter 9. Sarah. The bell above the door chimes, and my head snaps up from the dough I'm kneading, heart skipping with anticipation. But it's just Mrs. Peterson coming in for her usual morning coffee and scone. Not Connor. "Morning, dear," she says, unwinding her scarf despite the warmth of the summer day. "Those cinnamon rolls smell divine." "Thanks," I say, forcing a smile. "They'll be ready in about 20 minutes if you'd like to wait." "I'll stick with my usual today. These old bones are meeting the church committee at 9. I nod, wiping flour from my hands before moving to pour her coffee. The clock on the wall reads 7:15. Connor usually comes by around 6:30, sometimes earlier. Not that I'm keeping track. "You all right, Sarah?" Mrs. Peterson asks, her eyes sharp behind her bifocals. "You seem distracted this morning." "Tired," I lie. "Busy weekend with the market." She doesn't look convinced but accepts her coffee and scone with a nod. "Don't work too hard, dear. The world won't end if you take a day off once in a while." After she leaves, I return to my dough, kneading with more force than necessary. It's fine that Connor isn't here. Normal, even. Until recently, he only came on Tuesdays. One kiss doesn't change a routine. Except it wasn't just a kiss. It was the way he looked at me afterward, like he'd discovered something precious and unexpected. The way his hands felt on my face, gentle despite their strength. The way he tasted of sunshine and possibility. And now, silence. "You're overthinking this," I mutter to the dough. "Talking to the bread again?" Maya asks, coming through the back door with fresh eggs from her father's farm. Giving it some encouragement, I reply, shaping the dough with quick, practiced movements. "How were the chickens?" "Judgmental, as always." She sets the egg cartons on the counter, then pauses, studying me. "You okay? You're massacring that poor dough." I ease up on my kneading, embarrassed to be so transparent. "I'm fine." "Uh-huh." She removes her jacket, hanging it on the hook by the door. "This wouldn't have anything to do with a certain mountain man who's mysteriously absent this morning, would it?" Heat rises to my cheeks. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." She ties her apron with a knowing look. "And I didn't see you two making hard eyes at each other all day yesterday at the market." "We were not making," I stop, catching myself. "It doesn't matter. Connor's busy. He has an actual job that doesn't revolve around my bakery." Maya holds up her hands in surrender. "Whatever you say, boss." The morning rush keeps us both busy after that, a steady stream of customers that doesn't leave much time for thinking about Connor Callahan or his absence. It's almost a relief, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of the bakery. But as the crowd thins and noon approaches, I find myself glancing at the door with increasing frequency. Maybe he's just running late. Maybe there was an emergency at the lodge. Maybe he's taking a group of hikers up to Lookout Point. Maybe he regrets kissing me. The thought lands like a stone in my stomach, heavy and cold. By closing time, I've convinced myself that yesterday was a mistake. The walk, the conversation, the kiss, a momentary lapse in judgment that he's now trying to politely forget. Why else would he disappear after weeks of consistent visits? You want me to lock up? Maya asks, already wiping down the last table. I've got it, I say. Go on home. She hesitates. You sure you're okay? Absolutely, I say. Just tired. You need to get out of that bakery before you murder another batch of innocent dough, Maya had insisted after we closed up shop 2 days later. Come to the coffee loft with me. Catherine's testing new summer drink recipes and needs guinea pigs. Which is how I find myself sitting at a corner table in the coffee loft at 7 in the evening, nursing a lavender honey iced latte that's admittedly delicious. The coffee shop is quiet for a Monday night, just a few students from the community college huddled over laptops, and a couple in the far corner sharing a slice of pie. What do you think? Catherine asks, sliding into the chair across from me. Too floral? Not sweet enough? It's perfect, I say, taking another sip. You could bottle this and sell it by the gallon. High praise from Elk Ridge's premier baker. She smiles, but her eyes are assessing me carefully. Maya says you've been in a mood. I shoot a glare toward the counter where Maya is helping Nolan restock pastries, my pastries, ironically enough. Maya talks too much. She's worried about you. We both are. Catherine leans forward, lowering her voice. Does this have something to do with Connor? The sound of his name sends an unwelcome jolt through me. Why would it? Because Nolan mentioned he's been holed up at the lodge for 2 days straight, barely talking to anyone. And you're here stress drinking my experimental lattes instead of at home baking, which is your usual coping mechanism. I'm not coping with anything, I insist. And Connor's personal schedule is none of my business. Catherine gives me a look that says she isn't buying it for a second. Sarah. The bell above the door chimes, interrupting whatever she was about to say. And because the universe has a twisted sense of humor, Connor Callahan walks in. My heart performs a complicated gymnastic routine in my chest, equal parts hope and dread. He looks tired, dark circles under his eyes, his hair messier than usual as if he's been running his hands through it repeatedly. His gaze sweeps the shop, and for a moment, I think about ducking behind Catherine or making a break for the restroom. But then his eyes find mine, and it's too late. I straighten in my chair, bracing myself. For what, I'm not exactly sure. An explanation? An apology? A casual greeting that pretends nothing happened between us? What I don't expect is the hesitation. He stops just inside the doorway, a flash of surprise crossing his face, before his expression shudders. And then, as if forcing himself, he takes a step toward me, and another, his movements stiff in a way Connor Callahan never is. It's the hesitation that does it. That brief moment where I can see him calculating, deciding whether to approach or retreat. If I meant anything to him, anything at all, there wouldn't be that pause, that momentary weighing of options. He wouldn't look at me like I'm a problem to solve rather than a person he wanted to kiss just 2 days ago. Before he can reach our table, I stand abruptly, nearly knocking over my drink. I should go, I say to Catherine, grabbing my bag. Early morning tomorrow. Sarah, she starts, glancing between me and Connor with dawning understanding. Thanks for the latte. It's really good. I force a smile that feels brittle on my face. Put it on my tab. I turn away, deliberately taking the long way around the cafe to avoid having to pass by Connor. It's childish, maybe, but I can't bear the thought of a stilted conversation, of pretending that my heart isn't cracking in my chest. Sarah. His voice stops me just as I reach the door. He's moved to intercept me, standing close enough that I can smell the familiar pine scent of him, can see the stubble on his jaw that wasn't there when he kissed me. Connor. I keep my voice neutral, my eyes fixed somewhere around his shoulder rather than meeting his gaze. Nice to see you. He hesitates again, running a hand through his hair in that frustrated gesture I've seen 100 times. About Saturday. Don't worry about it. The words come out sharper than I intended. I soften my tone, aiming for casual indifference. It was just a kiss, right? No big deal. Something flashes in his eyes, but I'm already pushing past him, reaching for the door. That's not what he begins, but I cut him off. I have to go. I pull the door open, the evening air hitting my face like a reprieve. I'm sure you're busy with lodge stuff. Don't let me keep you. I'm outside before he can respond, walking quickly down the sidewalk toward home. Each step feels like running from a fire, adrenaline pushing me forward even as my chest burns. I will not cry. Not here, not over this. Not over a man who has to think twice about whether he wants to speak to me. I've spent years watching Connor Callahan walk into my bakery, take what he needs, and leave without a backward glance. One kiss, one moment of connection, doesn't erase that pattern. All it did was make me fool enough to hope for something different. Well, I'm done hoping. Done waiting. Done being the woman who pines after a man who sees her as an obligation, a responsibility. Another person to rescue and then walk away from. I won't be his rescue project. Not again. By the time I reach my house, my eyes are dry and my resolve is set. I jam the key into the lock with more force than necessary, the familiarity of my small home wrapping around me as I step inside. Tomorrow, I'll be fine. I'll bake and smile and serve customers and forget the way Connor's lips felt against mine. I'll forget the softness in his eyes on that porch, the gentle way his hands cradled my face. Tomorrow, I'll be the Sarah Miller I was before the storm. Before Connor Callahan ever looked at me as something more than the baker who makes his Tuesday morning coffee. But tonight, alone in my kitchen with no one to see, I allow myself one moment of pure, unguarded feeling. I place both hands flat on the counter, hang my head, and breathe through the pain. That's what I get, I whisper to the empty room.
Chapter 10. Connor. I barely taste the coffee as I gulp it down, my mind replaying the scene at the coffee loft like a movie stuck on repeat. Sarah's face when she saw me. The hurt in her eyes that she tried to hide. The way she practically ran to avoid talking to me. It was just a kiss, right? No big deal. Her words echo in my head, each syllable a precise cut. I've spent the last 2 days hiding out at the lodge, throwing myself into work, trying to make sense of what happened on her porch. Of what I felt when I kissed her. Instead of talking to her like a rational adult, I disappeared. And now, you look like a man who could use something stronger than coffee. I look up to find my mother standing in the doorway of the lodge kitchen, her keen eyes missing nothing as she takes in my disheveled appearance. It's nearly midnight, the kitchen long since closed after dinner service, but insomnia drove me down here in search of caffeine and solitude. I'm fine, I say automatically. She doesn't contradict me outright, just moves to the industrial coffee maker and pours herself a cup. That's why you're sitting alone in a dark kitchen looking like you've lost your best friend. I couldn't sleep. The soft click of heels on the hallway tile interrupts whatever my mother was about to say. Lauren Abbott appears in the doorway, a stack of folders in her arms, looking surprised to find anyone in the kitchen this late. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize anyone was still up. She hesitates, clearly unsure whether to enter or retreat. Don't mind us, my mother says, waiting her in. Connor's having a crisis of the heart, and I'm dispensing motherly wisdom. Nothing we can't pause for a moment. Mom, I groan, mortified. Lauren's lips twitch with a suppressed smile. I just needed to leave these budget reports for tomorrow's meeting. I was working late and figured I'd drop them off now rather than coming in early. At midnight? I ask. She shrugs, setting the folders on the counter. Some of us deal with insomnia by working. Evidently others prefer brooding in dark kitchens. Despite everything, I find myself almost smiling at her directness. It's easy to see why she and Liam once worked as a couple, and why they eventually didn't. Both too stubborn for their own good. Lauren's been a huge help with the quarterly finances, my mother says, conveniently ignoring my discomfort. Already found 3 accounting discrepancies Liam's been missing for months. I'm sure he was thrilled about that, I mutter. Actually, he was quite professional about it, Lauren says, a hint of defensiveness in her tone. Whatever else you might think of your brother, he cares about this lodge more than his pride. An awkward silence follows, and Lauren shifts slightly. Anyway, I should go. It's late. Nonsense, my mother says. You've been working for hours. At least have some coffee before you drive home. Before Lauren can protest, Mom is already pouring her a cup. I watch with amusement as my mother efficiently maneuvers another person into doing exactly what she wants. Some things never change. Just for a minute, Lauren concedes, accepting the mug. So, Mom says casually, once the 3 of us are settled at the kitchen island. You kissed her. I nearly dropped my coffee, the mug clattering against the countertop. What? Who told you that? She smiles, that knowing maternal smile that used to make me and my brothers confess to all manner of childhood misdeeds. Small town, Connor. And you just confirmed it. Lauren's eyebrows shoot up, and she looks like she's wondering if she can politely escape whatever family drama she's just been dragged into. I groan, setting my mug down before I actually spill it. Who was it? Catherine? Nolan? Does it matter? The point is, she takes a deliberate sip. You kissed Sarah Miller. And then, from what I gather, you promptly disappeared for 2 days. Lauren winces slightly. And on that note, I think I'll stay right where you are, my mother says firmly. You're part of this lodge's family now, even if you and Liam couldn't make it work. Besides, Connor could use a female perspective that isn't his mother's. Put like that, it sounds even worse than it felt. I needed to think. Thinking. My mother nods sagely. Always a good excuse for avoiding feelings. Lauren's expression shifts to something I can't quite read, recognition, maybe, or resignation. She stares into her coffee, suddenly very interested in its contents. I wasn't avoiding, I stop, the lie too transparent even for me. It's complicated. Is it? Mom raises an eyebrow. You have feelings for her. She clearly has feelings for you. You finally acted on those feelings. What's complicated about that? Everything. I stand, too restless to remain seated. Sarah and I have known each other forever. She's part of this town, part of my life here. If I mess this up. My mother's voice is gentle but pointed. Connor, I saw her face when she left the coffee loft tonight. I think we're already in win territory. Guilt twists in my stomach. You were there? Having tea with Mrs. Henderson by the window. You were too busy staring at Sarah to notice anyone else. She sets her mug down. That girl has been in love with you for years, you know. No, she hasn't, I say automatically, though the words ring hollow even to my own ears. The photograph. The way she always remembered how I took my coffee. The look in her eyes right before I kissed her. Connor. Just my name, but the way she says it, quiet, expectant, makes me stop pacing. What if I can't be what she needs? The question slips out before I can stop it, raw and honest in a way I rarely allow myself to be. What if I let her down? Lauren, who has been silent during this exchange, finally speaks up. For what it's worth, she says quietly, not trying at all hurts far more than trying and failing. Her eyes meet mine briefly before shifting to Evie, then back to her coffee. At least with the latter, you know you did everything you could. The weight behind her words isn't lost on me. Whatever happened between her and Liam clearly left its mark. That's what this is really about, isn't it? My mother's eyes soften. You're not afraid of feeling something for Sarah. You're afraid of feeling something real. Something that matters enough to hurt if it goes wrong. I sink back onto my stool, the fight going out of me. It would hurt her more if I tried and failed. And what about if you don't try at all? How's that working out? She gestures in the general direction of town. Did she look unhurt to you tonight? The memory of Sarah's face, the careful mask of indifference that couldn't quite hide the pain beneath, makes me wince. Lauren quietly stands, gathering her purse. I should go. Thank you for the coffee, Evie. My mother nods in acknowledgement, but her focus remains on me. You've spent your whole life being the dependable one, she continues once Lauren has slipped out. The one who puts everyone else first. The one who fixes things. But some things you can't fix by thinking or planning or analyzing. Some things you just have to feel. What if feeling isn't enough? What if it's everything? She reaches across the counter to place her hand over mine. You're afraid of feeling something real, she repeats. But it's too late for that, isn't it? I clench my jaw, unable to deny the truth of her words. It is too late. Too late to pretend I don't care about Sarah Miller. Too late to go back to the way things were before the storm, before the cabin, before I saw that photograph and realized how she's always seen me. Too late to protect either of us from the risk of something real. I messed up, I admit finally. Yes, you did. My mother's bluntness is oddly comforting. No platitudes, no sugarcoating. Just truth. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I tried talking to her tonight. She wouldn't listen. Can you blame her? You disappeared for 2 days after kissing her, Connor. If a man did that to me, I'd make him grovel before I gave him the time of day. Despite everything, a small laugh escapes me. Are you suggesting I grovel? I'm suggesting you figure out what you want and then fight for it. She squeezes my hand once before letting go. If Sarah Miller matters to you, really matters, then you need to show her. Not with words. With actions. She slides off her stool, taking her mug to the sink. And maybe start by not disappearing when things get real. I watch her rinse her cup, her movements efficient and sure as they've always been. My mother, who raised 4 boys after my father died, who kept the lodge running, who never once let any of us see her break even when I know she must have. Mom, I say as she heads for the door. How did you know? With Dad. That it was real. She pauses, a soft smile touching her lips. When I realized I was more afraid of not being with him than I was of all the ways it could go wrong. She gives me a knowing look. Get some sleep, Connor. You look terrible. And Sarah deserves you at your best when you go to win her back. After she leaves, I sit in the quiet kitchen, her words settling into my bones like truth. I've spent 2 days hiding out, overthinking a kiss that felt more right than anything has in years, analyzing feelings instead of just letting myself have them. And in the process, I've hurt the one person I wanted most to protect. The realization sits heavy in my chest, undeniable now that I've faced it. I can't fix this with careful planning or strategic thinking. I can't approach Sarah Miller like a problem to solve or a trail to navigate. This is going to require something I'm far less practiced at. Vulnerability. Morning comes too quickly after a mostly sleepless night. I drag myself out to the lodge's garden at dawn, a space I usually avoid because it's more Rowan's domain than mine. But the kitchen gardens behind the lodge are the only place I know to find what I need. My knowledge of flowers is limited at best. I can identify most of the wildflowers on our trails, but only because guests sometimes ask about them. The careful cultivation of blooms has always been Rowan's specialty. Still, even I can recognize the vibrant lavender and deep purple blooms that Sarah always keeps in window boxes outside her bakery. I kneel beside a patch of what I hope are the right flowers, pulling gardening shears from my back pocket. A peace offering feels juvenile, but showing up empty-handed feels worse. Interesting, a voice says from behind me. I don't recall adding flower thief to your job description. I turn to find Declan standing over me, arms folded across his chef's jacket, an amused glint in his eyes despite the early hour. I'm not stealing, I mutter, turning back to the flowers. Just borrowing. From Rowan's meticulously planned garden? Bold move. He crouches beside me, eyeing my targets. Those aren't even in bloom yet. You want the ones on the south side. I sigh, setting down the shears. How did you even know I was out here? Mom mentioned you might be making some questionable decisions this morning. He grins, not bothering to hide his enjoyment of my discomfort. Something about Sarah Miller. Of course she did. In the Callahan family, privacy is a theoretical concept at best. I don't want to talk about it. Clearly. Declan gestures to the gardening shears. That's why you're committing horticultural crimes at 6 in the morning. Before I can respond, another voice joins in. So it's true. Rowan strolls toward us, work gloves already on his hands despite the early hour. Connor's finally figured out what the rest of us have known for years. I stand, brushing dirt from my knees. You two ganging up on me now? Absolutely, Declan says cheerfully. It's not often we get to see the great Connor Callahan, master of mountains and emotional repression, reduced to groveling. I saw Liam heading to the office at dawn, Rowan adds quietly. Apparently Lauren's been there all night working on some budget crisis. He looked about as miserable as you do. Two Callahan men tripping over themselves with women in 1 week, Declan shakes his head in mock dismay. Mom must be beside herself. Leave Liam out of this, I say, feeling a strange sense of kinship with my oldest brother for once. Whatever's going on with him and Lauren is their business. Just like whatever's going on with you and Sarah is yours? Declan counters. Funny how nobody told the town gossips that. Rowan, ever the quieter of my brothers, simply kneels to examine the flowers I was about to butcher. These won't work, he says matter-of-factly. Come on. Without waiting for a response, he starts walking toward the greenhouse at the far end of the garden. After a moment's hesitation, I follow, Declan falling into step beside me. You know you're being an idiot, right? Declan says, his tone somewhere between teasing and serious. 2 days of radio silence after kissing her? Even I know that's not how it works. I needed time to think. Because that's exactly what you need, more time to overthink instead of actually feeling something, he retorts with an eye roll. It's not that simple. It never is, Declan agrees, his tone softening slightly. But it's worth it. Inside the greenhouse, Rowan is already selecting flowers with careful precision. Not just the purple blooms I was aiming for, but others I can't name, creating a small, thoughtful arrangement. These are better, he says, handing me a cluster of lavender and something with delicate white flowers. Sarah prefers the spring varieties. The ones you were looking at won't bloom for another few weeks. I stare at him. How do you know what Sarah prefers? Rowan shrugs. She comes by for cuttings sometimes. For her window boxes. And you two talk about flowers? Not everyone communicates exclusively in grunts and weather forecasts, Connor. Declan picks up a spray bottle, misting the arrangement in my hands. Some of us actually have conversations with women. I talk to Sarah, I protest. About what? Coffee orders and trail conditions? Declan shakes his head. When's the last time you asked about her photography? The question hits uncomfortably close to home. How do you know about her photography? Because Declan asked, Rowan says simply. He rummages through a drawer and produces twine, carefully wrapping it around the stems. She showed us some of her work. She's talented. Another realization I've come to too late. I'm screwing this up, aren't I? Impressively so, Declan confirms. But at least you're trying to fix it. Though I'm not sure flowers are going to cut it after the disappearing act you pulled. Rowan finishes tying off the arrangement and hands it back to me. It's a start.
Chapter 11. Sarah. I've never been a confrontational person. Bakers rarely are. We're the ones who smooth things over, who make everything a little sweeter, a little easier to digest. It's practically in the job description. But I'm done waiting. The drive up to Mountain Laurel Lodge takes exactly 12 minutes from town. I know because I've counted every second, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles have gone white. Each turn in the winding mountain road brings me closer to either closure or heartbreak, maybe both, and the butterflies in my stomach have evolved into something more like angry hornets. This is ridiculous, I mutter to myself as the lodge comes into view, its familiar rustic elegance normally comforting but now intimidating. You're a grown woman. Act like it. I park in the visitor lot, ignoring the voice in my head telling me to turn around, to drive back to town, to the safety of my bakery where flour and sugar follow predictable rules and nothing ever breaks your heart if you follow the recipe. The morning air is crisp despite the summer warmth, the scent of pine sharp in my lungs as I stride toward the main building. A few guests lounge on the wide porch, enjoying coffee and the mountain view, but I barely notice them. My focus narrows to a single purpose: finding Connor. I don't have to look far. He's emerging from his cabin, one of several set apart from the main lodge for family use. He's freshly showered, his hair still damp. For a moment, I just watch him. He looks nervous, determined, nothing like the confident mountain guide I'm used to seeing. He hasn't noticed me yet, his attention focused on whatever thoughts are running through his head, his expression more vulnerable than I've ever seen it. Not like he usually is. Not like he was with me. Connor. He turns at the sound of my voice, surprise flashing across his face before something else replaces it, wariness, maybe. Or guilt. He stands quickly, wiping his hands on his jeans. Sarah. My name sounds careful on his lips, like he's testing the waters. I was just about to. Were you? I cut him off, the anger I've been nursing for days finally finding its voice. Because from where I'm standing, you've had plenty of time to do whatever you were just about to do. He takes a step toward me, then seems to think better of it. I know, he says quietly. I should have come to the bakery. I was planning to this morning. 3 days later? I wrap my arms around myself, suddenly feeling exposed despite being the one who sought this confrontation. You kissed me, Connor. Then you disappeared. So tell me, was it just pity? What? No. He looks genuinely shocked by the suggestion. Sarah, that's not. Then what was it? I press, needing to hear him say it, whatever it is. Some kind of obligation? A moment of weakness? Because if that kiss meant nothing to you, I need to know. He runs a hand through his hair, a gesture I've seen 100 times over the years. It wasn't nothing, he says finally. It was, he stops, seeming to struggle with the words, a hesitation that stretches between us like a chasm. And that moment of hesitation is all I need. All the confirmation I never wanted. If he had to think about it, search for the right words, then whatever that kiss meant to him, it wasn't what it meant to me. It wasn't everything. Never mind, I say, my voice steadier than I feel as the last fragile hope crumbles inside me. I got my answer. Sarah, wait. But I'm already turning away, unable to bear the pity I imagine in his eyes. 3 quick steps and I'm moving down the path toward the parking lot, my vision blurring as tears threaten. I will not cry in front of him. I've given Connor Callahan enough of myself already, my mornings, my thoughts, my heart. He doesn't get my tears too. That's not what his voice follows me, but I don't slow down. Gravel crunches under my feet as I quicken my pace. The lodge's main building looms ahead, guests still lingering on the porch, oblivious to the small drama unfolding. I'll have to walk past them to reach my car. Perfect. Nothing like an audience for the final act of my humiliation. I'm halfway across the open area when I hear rapid footsteps behind me. Sarah. I don't turn around. I can't bear to see the pity in his eyes, or worse, the relief that I'm walking away. Sarah, please. His voice is closer now, urgent. Would you just? What? I spin around, the word coming out sharper than I intended. What more is there to say, Connor? I regret turning immediately. Because now I have to look at him, his flushed face, his concerned eyes, his damp hair curling slightly at the temples. Even now, even hurting, I notice these things. I hate that I notice. But something's different. The hesitation from moments ago is gone, replaced by a determination that stops me in my tracks. We're standing in front of the main lodge now, I realize belatedly. The morning crowd has gathered on the wide porch, guests with their coffee cups, staff preparing for the day. And the Callahans. I spot Liam near the entrance, Declan leaning against a post, Evie watching from the top step with undisguised interest. Great. An audience for whatever gentle letdown Connor has planned. I need to go, I mutter, turning again. I love you, Sarah Miller. The words stop me as effectively as a physical barrier. For a moment, I'm certain I've misheard. I turn slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. What did you say? My voice is barely audible. Connor stands a few feet away, his hands open at his sides, looking more vulnerable than I've ever seen him. And more certain. I love you, he repeats, louder this time. Someone on the porch gasps softly. I think I have for years. I just didn't know how to see it. The world narrows to just his face, his eyes, his words. The audience fades away. But you hesitated, I say, the hurt still raw. When I brought up the kiss, you hesitated. Because I was trying to find the right words. He takes a step closer. I've spent 2 days thinking about what to say to you, how to explain, and I still got it wrong. Another step. I'm not good at this, Sarah. At feelings. At saying what matters. Then why should I believe you now? The words come out as a whisper, hope and fear warring inside me. Connor exhales, his expression opening in a way I've rarely seen. No walls, no careful distance. Just him. Because every Tuesday for years, I drove out of my way to come to your bakery, when I could have had coffee at the lodge. Of all the things I expected him to say, this wasn't on the list. You what? I told myself it was about routine, or those scones, he explains, taking another step closer. But it was always about seeing you, Sarah. I just didn't let myself admit it until now. But, why? I ask, genuinely confused. His eyes never leave mine, blue and clear and utterly sincere. Because being in your bakery, even for those few minutes every week, was the brightest part of my day. I've spent years walking in and out of your life without realizing you were what I was looking for all along. The admission steals my breath. Connor Callahan, the man who belongs to these mountains, to this lodge, to a family that loves him fiercely, went out of his way every week just to spend a few minutes in my presence. All this time, I thought I was the only one feeling something, but he was drawn to me too, even if he didn't recognize why. I've been an idiot, he continues, close enough now that I can see the different shades of blue in his eyes. Running when I should have been staying. Thinking when I should have been feeling. And taking for granted the one person who's always seen me, really seen me, when I couldn't even see myself. Tears well in my eyes, blurring his face. I blink them back, unwilling to miss a moment of this. I've spent years memorizing Connor Callahan's expressions, and this one, open, vulnerable, certain, is entirely new. I don't need any more time to think, Sarah, he says, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. I don't need to analyze or figure it out. I just need you. If you'll still have me. The last of my resolve crumbles, years of careful restraint falling away in an instant. Before I can second guess myself, I'm moving, not away this time, but toward him. Running. Connor catches me as I launch myself into his arms, his hand steady at my waist as he lifts me slightly. I bury my face against his neck, breathing in the pine and soap scent of him, feeling the solidity of his chest against mine. I take it that's a yes, he murmurs against my hair, his voice unsteady for the first time. I pull back just enough to see his face, my hands framing his cheeks. Yes, I whisper, then louder, yes. And then I'm kissing him, not soft and tentative like on my porch, but with all the certainty of someone claiming what's been theirs all along. His arms tighten around me, lifting me higher as he returns the kiss with equal fervor. Somewhere in the background, I'm vaguely aware of cheers and applause from the porch. Someone, Jameson, probably, lets out a wolf whistle. But it all fades to background noise compared to the thundering of my heart and the feeling of finally finally being exactly where I belong. When we eventually break apart, both breathing hard, Connor doesn't set me down. He keeps me close, his forehead pressed to mine, a smile spreading across his face that I've never seen before, unguarded, joyful, a little dazed. For the record, I say, my own smile so wide it hurts, I've been yours for years too. You just needed to notice. I'm noticing now, he promises, his eyes never leaving mine. And I'm not looking away again. Behind us, life at the lodge continues, guests checking in, staff moving about, the Callahan family beaming with various degrees of smugness. But here in the circle of Connor's arms, with the morning sun warming my shoulders and his heart beating against mine, none of that matters. What matters is that Connor Callahan loves me. And after all these years of waiting, of watching, of loving him from a distance, I finally get to love him up close.
Epilogue. Connor. Elk Ridge, 10 months later. If you fidget with that tie one more time, I'm going to strangle you with it. Liam's voice holds just enough brotherly irritation to snap me out of my nervous spiral. I drop my hands to my sides, resisting the urge to tug at the collar that feels tighter than it did 5 minutes ago. I don't know how people wear these things voluntarily, I mutter, catching my reflection in the window of my cabin. The suit is foreign territory, pressed and proper in a way that makes me feel like an imposter. But Sarah deserves this. A real wedding, not just a rushed courthouse ceremony or a casual gathering on the lawn. The suffering is temporary, Liam assures me, straightening his own tie with practiced ease. The photos, unfortunately, are forever. Remind me why I asked you to be my best man, I grumble. Because Declan would have lost the rings, and Rowan would have forgotten to speak during his toast. He claps a hand on my shoulder, his expression softening. You look good, Connor. Sarah won't know what hit her. A knock on the door interrupts whatever retort I might have managed. Declan pokes his head in, already dressed in his own suit, though his is paired with the chef's apron he refused to take off until the last possible moment. It's time, he announces. Mom says if you're late to your own wedding, she's giving your cabin to Jameson and Bear. That dog would destroy the place in a week, I say, but I'm already moving toward the door, the familiar banter of my brothers steadying my nerves more than they could ever know. Outside, spring has transformed the lodge grounds. Mountain laurel blooms in bursts of pink and white along the paths, their sweet scent carried on the gentle breeze. The ceremony site sits on the west lawn, overlooking the valley where, exactly 10 months ago, I rescued Sarah from a storm that changed both our lives. Chairs arranged in neat rows are already filled with guests, townspeople, lodge staff, and the friends who've become our extended family over the years. At the front, a simple arch woven with wildflowers and mountain laurel marks the spot where I'll wait for Sarah. Rowan and Max outdid themselves with the decorations, incorporating every bloom that holds significance for us, lavender for the bouquets he helped me gather, daisies because they remind Sarah of summer mornings, and mountain laurel to honor the place that brought us together. I take my position beneath the arch, Liam at my side. From here, I can see the faces of everyone who matters. My mother in the front row, already dabbing at her eyes though the ceremony hasn't even started. Declan with Jules and her daughter Mia, the little girl fidgeting in her flower girl dress. Rowan and Daisy, her head resting on his shoulder as she whispers something that makes him smile. Nolan with his arm around Catherine, who grins and gives me a thumbs up. And there, in the third row, Lauren Abbott sits beside Mom, helping my mother organize the program in her lap. Her presence still creates a subtle tension. I notice how Liam carefully avoids looking in her direction, though she steals glances at him when she thinks no one is watching. Some stories, it seems, are still being written. Jameson arrives last, sliding into his seat with Bear at his feet, the golden retriever surprisingly well behaved in his bow tie collar. My little brother winks at me, then leans down to whisper something to his dog who sits attentively, as if he understands the importance of the occasion. The music begins. Not the traditional wedding march, but a string quartet playing a melody that Sarah chose, something soft and achingly beautiful that makes my chest tighten with anticipation. And then she appears at the end of the aisle, and the world around me fades to background noise. Sarah Miller, soon to be Sarah Callahan, is radiant in a simple white dress that flows around her like water. Her hair is partially up, with loose curls framing her face and small mountain laurel blooms woven through the strands. But it's her smile that steals my breath. It's wide and unguarded, her eyes finding mine immediately as if no one else exists. Maya walks beside her, serving as her maid of honor, but I barely register her presence. All I can see is Sarah, moving toward me with steady steps, each one bringing her closer to the future we've chosen together. When she reaches me, I can't help but reach for her hand, needing the contact to ground myself in this moment that feels almost dreamlike. "Hi," she whispers, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Hi," I manage, overwhelmed by how beautiful she is, by how impossibly lucky I am. The ceremony passes in a blur of words and promises. I repeat my vows without hesitation, the words coming easily now that I've learned to stop overthinking and simply feel. When I slide the ring onto her finger, my hands are steady despite the emotion tightening my throat. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant says, and before he can tell me to kiss the bride, I'm already drawing Sarah close, her laughter against my lips the sweetest sound I've ever heard. Cheers erupt around us. I'm vaguely aware of Liam clapping me on the back, of my mother crying openly now, of Bear barking his approval from his spot beside Jameson. But all that matters is Sarah in my arms, her hands framing my face as she whispers, "We did it, mountain man." The reception unfolds on the lodge's garden terrace, transformed by twinkling lights and more of Rowan's floral arrangements. Declan outdid himself with the menu, incorporating Sarah's recipes into his own for a feast that has guests returning for seconds and thirds. The cake, a masterpiece of Sarah's design that she insisted on baking herself despite my protests, sits on display, waiting for the traditional cutting. I find myself at the edge of the dance floor, watching as Sarah twirls with Mia, both of them laughing as Declan and Jules look on. The sight of Sarah with a child makes my heart swell with possibilities, a future I never allowed myself to imagine before her. "She's good with kids," Liam says, appearing at my side with 2 glasses of champagne. He hands me one, following my gaze. "Got any plans in that department?" "One life-changing event at a time," I reply, though the thought has crossed my mind more than once lately. "How about you? Any regrets about the path not taken?" His eyes involuntarily drift to where Lauren sits at a table with my mother, their heads bent together in conversation. "Some roads are better left untraveled." "But?" I prompt, sensing there's more he's not saying. He sighs, taking a long sip of champagne. "But sometimes I wonder if we gave up too easily. If the timing was just wrong." "It's never too late to find out," I say, thinking of how close I came to losing Sarah through my own fear and hesitation. Says the man who took 10 years to notice the woman right in front of him. Liam's tone is light, but there's something wistful in his expression. Some of us aren't as lucky to get second chances. Before I can respond, Rowan approaches, gesturing toward the dance floor. "Hate to interrupt, but your wife is looking for you." He emphasizes the word wife with a smile. Something about not letting her dance alone at her own wedding. "Don't need to tell me twice." I hand my glass to Liam, clapping him on the shoulder as I pass. "Think about what I said." Sarah meets me halfway, immediately fitting herself against me as if we'd been dancing together our whole lives. "Everything okay?" she asks, nodding toward Liam who still stands on the sidelines, his gaze now openly fixed on Lauren. "Just offering some brotherly advice," I say, spinning her gently. "Something I seem to have gotten good at recently." "The wise Connor Callahan," she teases, her fingers playing with the hair at the nape of my neck. "Who would have thought?" "Certainly not me." I pull her closer, breathing in the scent of her, vanilla and flowers and something uniquely Sarah. "Have I told you how beautiful you are today?" "Only about 20 times." Her smile is soft, intimate. But I don't mind hearing it again. "You're beautiful," I murmur against her ear. "And I'm the luckiest man in Elk Ridge." The music shifts to something slower, and Sarah rests her head against my chest, her body swaying with mine in perfect harmony. Over her shoulder, I watch my family. Declan spins Jules while Mia giggles at their feet. Rowan and Daisy are in their own world, foreheads touching as they dance. Nolan whispers something to Catherine that makes her laugh out loud. And then there's Jameson, sitting at a table with Bear beside him, looking thoughtful as he scratches the dog's ears. Another Callahan bachelor, though something tells me he won't hold that title for long. Not if my mother has anything to say about it. What are you thinking about? Sarah asks, following my gaze. Family, I answer honestly. How it grows and changes. How sometimes the things you're most afraid of turn out to be exactly what you need. She pulls back slightly to look at me, her eyes filled with a tenderness that still catches me off guard. Like getting caught in a storm and rescued by a silent mountain guide? I wasn't silent, I protest, though we both know better. You were absolutely silent. She rises on her toes to press a kiss to my jaw. But I wouldn't have it any other way. As the evening wears on, we slip away from the celebration, finding a quiet moment on the lodge's back porch. The valley stretches out below us, bathed in the golden light of sunset, the same view that's witnessed so many pivotal moments in our story. So, Sarah says, leaning against the railing. Any regrets, Mr. Callahan? Just one, I tell her, wrapping my arms around her from behind. That it took me so long to see what was right in front of me. She turns in my embrace, her hands coming to rest against my chest. We got here eventually. That's what matters. And as I lean down to kiss her, surrounded by the mountains that have always been my home, I realize that home isn't a place at all. It's this feeling of belonging, of being truly seen, of finding the courage to risk everything for love. Sarah Miller rescued me long before I ever rescued her. And now, we'll spend the rest of our lives rescuing each other, again and again, through whatever storms may come.
The end. This has been Rescued in the Storm by Suzanne Ash. Copyright 2025 by Suzanne Ash. Production copyright 2025 by Suzanne Ash. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe if you want me to put more of my books on YouTube. Visit my website at www.suzanneash.com for more of my books or find me on Amazon.